Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Reigning Woman and Womb Conversations. I am your girl, Reigning Woman. Wolf and Beta Close. You can check your email, please, for the link, and we'll be getting started shortly. And we're also waiting for the judge to hit the chat room so I can send him the link. But come on up, and we'll be started shortly, and I'll be right back. Well, good evening, Trail. So, let's see. Welcome, Little Rock. Good evening. Good evening, Echo Ruckus. Good evening, Neriden. Hey, what's going on, Miss Reigning Woman? If you put the hangout link, I'll join. And we have Trail. Well, thank you, Neriden. Actually, this is the interview. And so during the interview with One Conversations, I don't bring anyone else up into the hangout except for the interviewees. So let me see if I have the guys here. Oh, there's Wolf. Good evening, Wolf. Let me go ahead and see what's going on with Dre. Good evening,
Hey, what's
Priya.
going on?
How you doing? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, awesome. Give me just a second, a few seconds. We're going to be getting started shortly, so everyone, please, in the meantime, enjoy the lovely jazz and the sound of the fireplace being provided by Dr. Saxlove. Let me see, I may actually have Dre's address in the hangout. Let's see. Don't remember how I. I'll have to wait for him then. Just let me know when he's ready. How you doing this evening? Good evening, Monique. How you doing this evening? Wolf, Wolf, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
How you doing this evening?
I'm doing good.
Good. Glad to hear it. Okay. Y'all be a little patient with me. I'm actually I've got this whole new equipment system all set up, and this is actually the first time using it. I just got it all set up today, and so this is the first time putting some of it to use. So hopefully I'll maneuver along just fine. But so far so good. And while we wait for Judge Dre, I want you to know that I'm very happy to have you here. Wolf, welcome to
Glad to
the
be here.
room. Welcome to the room.
Thank you.
So what's going on with you, Wolf? I'm going to go ahead and get started with you, and then we'll catch up with Dre, as he comes along. But one of the first things that I want to know is why are you? Well, first of all, who are you? Tell the people who is the wolf in Beta Close.
Well, that's a long story, but I'll try to make it short. Simply put, I come from a background where um, you were faced to, you were forced to face the reality, pretty much. I come from Detroit. There's not much you can escape there, especially coming from poverty. You're meant to deal with your reality every day. Um, so it created a sense about me. which of course is the wolf. Um, Now the beta clothing side of it is due to the adornment I had to put on in order to survive uh, that environment in the way that I needed to. I believe that we all have, uh, I guess you can call them defense mechanisms built into us, and that was just mine. Mine was to be the guy who would go along to get along. And now this isn't, too many interactions with male. This is mostly interactions with women. Um,
Really?
so throughout my life, yeah, it is. I mean, because with men, they clearly understand exactly what I am. Most times when we have conversations, but women, on the other hand, they don't necessarily. And this isn't a bait and switch kind of situation. This is more of a, like I said, a survival mechanism that I had to adorn when I was in Detroit. And then throughout my life, it just carried along with me. The wolf side of me is the side that is unrelenting, that is abrasive, that is dominant, that is everlasting, that is um, aggressive per se. Um, and you can't go through life living that way with a lot of women these days. I mean, it's unfortunate that um, I had to adapt that way in order to deal with women there, but that's kind of what it came out to be. And that mostly started with growing up with my mother. Um, I was very, uh, I wouldn't say disagreeable, but I didn't want to go along with the grain so much because I felt internally something was wrong. Because, like I said, I pretty much raised myself when it came to street smarts and when it came to book smarts. Excuse me, my mother was there, just to give the children a place to live and food. That's pretty much it. There are little life lessons she taught me, but not many. My father was not um, out of my life, though. I saw my father frequently. We just didn't live together. So most of my time was spent at my mother's house. And I had to be in a house with, three, four other women because it was my mom and my three sisters. So I learned how to talk to them and interact with them in a way that wasn't so aggressive than what I needed to be on the streets. So that's where the wolf and better clothes comes from. And it just
Ah.
manifested more and more into higher tiers of interactions with people because these are things that I had to use in my life to adapt to the duality of what it was.
So, speaking of your family background and having an active relationship with your father, but not being in the same home, were your parents divorced or were they just separated, or what was the situation between your parents? And have how did that impact you in other ways in growing up and developing into a man?
Well, funny enough, the the interaction between my mother and father wasn't a typical one, I would say, because they weren't married, but they were together for roughly about a year before I was conceived. Um, they also uh, were in a very short relationship. They were together, they knew each other for about a year, but they were in a short relationship. I should put it that way. But um, I was conceived, and my father asked for a paternity test. How ironic is that when we say nowadays, you should probably ask for a paternity test no matter what your circumstances are. But my mother felt really offended by that. And I mean, everyone has the right to feel whatever way they need to feel based on the circumstances they're going through. But her actions were not ones that I uh, commend of, because that ended up in a fractured home pretty much because then they separated due to my father asking for something that was legitimate and his right, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I still, like I said, I still had, great interactions between my father and my mother. It's just that they didn't give me everything that I needed in order to function as a man in this world. Most of the things that I've learned are things that I have crafted myself. I'm very much an autodidact when it comes to my ability to progress through this world. um, I teach myself a lot of things. Most of my knowledge isn't secondhand. These are philosophies that I've come up with my own on my own. I mean, some of the topics that I talk about, they do come about from other things that I have experienced with other people. Saying their story, but most of the things that I talk about are from my own experiences. Um, so that's had an impact on who I am and what I've become. And also, I never seen what I guess you can say, what a real relationship was. I mean, because relationships where I'm from are just boyfriend and girlfriend. It was rare to see anyone married. The only one that I knew that was married out of my whole entire family was my great great grandmother and my one of my aunts, and that was it. So yes, that had a huge impact on how I understood interpersonal relationships when I became an adult.
Wow. Um, if you don't mind me asking, and if you don't mind the audience knowing, how old are you, or in what age bracket, if you don't mind sharing?
I don't mind. I'm 36 years old.
36. And are you married, or have you ever been married?
Yes, I was married twice.
Any children?
Yes, I have three children.
So interesting that you never saw a family relationship with, like with a marriage between a man and a woman, besides your great great grandparents and an aunt, that you have been married twice. What influenced you to become a husband? And would you do it again, or are you currently married? What is your status right now?
Well,
Anything that you don't
I
want
don't,
to add, anything
I
that you
don't,
don't want to answer, you are more than welcome to decline.
I don't mind answering any questions. I'm pretty much an open book. Uh, but I don't. Well, I got married because I wanted to create something that I had never seen. Um, I grew up watching a lot of TV, of course, as most of us come from that era have. Um, so I ended up, trying to template and mimic those relationships that I saw on TV. But no one told me that that was fairy tale. After a while, it gets socially ingrained into you that this is the way that you should conduct a relationship when you don't have a real world example of what that is. Um, I mean, these are fundamentals that we all go through and that we all pick up from different areas. So the closest to you when it comes to a fundamental is the one that you're more likely going to pick up based on whether it's a good situation or bad situation, of course. But more times than not, if it's a good situation that you see happiness in, you're more likely going to try to mimic that if there is no other readily available example to do so. So, I would watch a lot of TV and I'm like, yeah, I would love to have a relationship like that. So I went out and I tried to recreate it and I failed. But interestingly enough, my first wife was actually a virgin. She had never been with anybody, and I
Or
was that?
I said, shut the front door.
Yeah, I. That's one thing I did understand about the likelihood of success. I was very much a realist when it came to things, but I didn't have a real world example, so I went with the next thing I could think of, which was, um, you know, TV examples. I didn't have anything else. Um, but yeah, she was a virgin. Um, And I don't think this was by coincidence, I would say, because I purposely sought out aversion for that reason, and I went after her very hard. Not in the sense where I was harassing, but I would always keep in touch. I knew her for about 10 years before we ever got married. Um, and that was on and off, of course, because if you know anything about Detroit life, you never really live in the same house all your life. It's nearly impossible. It's not impossible, but nearly. Um, so I ended up getting married to her, but there were things about myself that I hadn't crafted because once again, I come from a situation where no one was teaching me anything. I taught myself. The closest thing that I saw to a man was my uncle. Not excluding my father, but I saw my uncle more than I saw my father, and I interacted with him more. He taught me a lot of things about mechanics and electrical work. He taught me man stuff, and it's been said that the best way to communicate masculinity to another man is do a masculine activity while talking to him, and that's very true. And a lot of men can probably concur that. But anyways, I ended up getting married, and I was in the military at the time. I was single, but I was in the military, and I married her when I came back because that was my first culture shock. I spent 20 years of my life in Detroit and hadn't lived anywhere else. So I ended up, feeling insecure about my environment because I didn't see anything that represented what I was used to. So I married a woman from back home, and she was a virgin, like I said, and we had our first kid. Um, but things didn't work out because she had a bit of a mental issue. She was a manic depressive, and I had no idea. Had no idea. She hid it for about 3 years into our marriage, when things were starting to look crazy, and I was just like, I don't know if I can do this. And then she came out with it like I'm supposed to be taking medication. And I was like, wow, really? She had told me that she had issues before, but never to that degree because I was deployed at the time, and this is the time where she actually checked into a mental clinic, and I had no idea. Um, and her family didn't tell me either, which would have been beneficial because it would curb my choice in her. But I ended up, ultimately telling her that unless she gets help, I don't think this is going to work out. So she divorced me. And I was like, well, what can I do? I can't force anyone to be in a relationship with me. And during that time, I had met my second wife. My second wife was almost the polar opposite of what she was. She was happy, outgoing. She was very seemingly nice. Um, but there were things about her that were red flags that I hadn't seen before, which I understand now. Her parents, they lived in the same house, but they didn't sleep in the same bed. Her mom slept on the couch in the living room, and her dad slept in the room, and it was kind of weird. I probably should have stepped back, but I was like, well, people are different. This is upstate New York. I've never been on this side of town in my life. I'd never interacted with any of the civilian culture there, so I just thought everything outside of Detroit was foreign for some reason. And not accepting the reality for what it was, that was not normal, um, rather than it just being formal, foreign rather. So long story short, I learned a lot of hard lessons in that second marriage as well because there were pieces of my manhood that was missing. So I reacted with the side of feminine, because I hadn't grew my masculinity to the point to be able to withstand and handle that situation correctly. I mean, and ultimately we ended up not being together. So I have three children out of both of those situations collectively. Two of them are actually still in the other room right now, chilling out. So yeah, that's the story of my relationships and how they became.
Interesting. A lot of layers here. Um, and I believe I'm glad that you decided that you allowed me to interview you because Some of the things that you're sharing so far, I already know is going to be very helpful to a few other people. Can you all hear me okay? Want to make sure that everything is okay with the sound system and everything. You can hear me fine, right, Wolf?
Yeah, I could hear you.
Okay, can you all hear me fine in the chat? And welcome everyone. Welcome Tony, Pretty Apple, Jim. You guys just getting in. Welcome. So this is welcome. This is the womb conversations, and womb conversations are where I interchange energy with masculine men, with other men, and particularly the black men, where we get to know them a little bit better, and different backgrounds, nothing in particular, and how just listening for them, giving them full support where otherwise their voices and their expressions may be hindered or may be muffled. Here they are allowed to express themselves fully. So, and also my platform is a platform of full respect. So, mods, please make sure that no one says anything that gets us distracted or off topic. You are allowed to ask questions to the panelists as well, and it's also to be respectful to myself as well as the panelists and the chat room. We play nice over here. So, and we do this so that we can learn, we can grow, we can build, we can heal, and we can share. We can be a blessing to others through the womb conversations. We have with us tonight, we have the wolf in better clothes, and we're expecting Judge Dre to come along as well. So, but in the meantime, we're getting to know the wolf. So he's already shared with us a little bit of his background with his relationship with his parents, and his status currently. And let's talk a little bit now about the age that you got married. But no, I want to actually go back to you stepping out of your element, leaving Detroit, going into the military, having learned quite a few things from your uncle more so than your father, even though your father was active in your life. What was the deciding factor for you to go into the military versus college?
Okay. So, um, I was living at my aunt's house, which is the one that I was telling you about that was married. Um, and I eventually came into conflict with that situation. So I had to find another place to live. And I had a good friend that I was working with at the time. I used to work at McDonald's. Um, and he offered me a place to live. And I lived there for some time. And his parents were married. So I learned a lot of lessons while living there, which was it wasn't a long time. It was maybe about 8 months or so. So I got to experience um, a lifestyle that I hadn't seen before, um, and it was a short period of time, but I learned a few things on the way, and I learned a few things that added to my masculinity and my manhood. Um, I didn't learn much about, you know, treating a woman a certain way. I mean, because his parents wouldn't show a lot of those aspects when we were around. Me and my, what I call him my brother now, but me and my brother. So um, I just pick up little things where I could, and I kept it moving on that. But what prompted me to go into the military is because my brother initially wanted to go to the military, and I had never considered it. Um, I did consider college, but tuitions were not all that great at the time. And I was never one to apply my intelligence to school because it bored the hell out of me, um, which is another interesting story. But um, he decided he wanted to go to the military, and I said, you know what, that's a good idea. I think I might do the same thing. So we went in, we talked to a recruiter, and we got signed up for our respective jobs. He picked power generation to begin with, and I picked I was going to pick power generation, but I got tired of being a mechanic for so long, working with my uncle. I was like, I'm going to try something different. Um, a person that I was uh, very fond of in the military was Colin Powell. And Colin Powell, he was a military intelligence officer. So I picked the job of military intelligence, and then I used that job to, progress through my career in the military. Um, this is before I was married. This is before I had any children, of course. I was roughly about 20 at the time, 2021, something like that. No, I was 20. So I ended up getting shipped off to Fort Drum, New York. And that was a very interesting thing. I mean, I had dealt with cold my entire life, but this was a different level of cold to the point where people from Alaska, well, the military from Alaska comes to upstate New York to train for cold weather. That's how cold it is there. Um, because their seasons change about the time that we're getting winter. But anyways, um, so I ended up uh, uh, getting deployed very soon after. I went to Afghanistan my first go around, and that was a very interesting. That getting deployed and going to a combat zone will shock your manhood. It will literally shock your manhood because it puts you into this isn't training anymore. We had trained for so many years, well, not so many years. We had trained for so many months in order to get to the point where we could deploy and we were ready to face combat if needed. It's so different when you actually put your feet on that soil over there. I mean, it was 125 degrees when I got there to start off. And this is coming from upstate New York during the wintertime. So not only was it a physical shock, I mean, it shocked on all levels. It shocked because of the sounds were different. The way the sun glared on your skin from when you came over from a climate that it was snowing in. Um, from the food that you ate, from the living conditions, from the new adjustment that you had to make when doing your day to day job. It was very shocking, and it definitely mans you up because it took away that security that you thought you had. Um, so it was a very interesting thing. I've seen a lot of things. I've seen people be killed. I've lost a few buddies over there. I've seen children be killed. I've seen humanitarian efforts go right. I've seen us, liberate prisoners from uh, the occupants over there. I've been through a lot, especially with military intelligence. This was a job in which that I grew my beard out and wore civilian clothes while everyone else was walking around in uh, uniform. So we stood out wherever we went, but we kind of blend in wherever we went when it came to going outside of the fob, and that's pretty much the base. You know, there have been so many times we've been, about 100 miles away from our base, and it's just like 8 guys, and that's it. And we've gotten to firefights, and people have been killed, like I've said, and it pretty much puts you in a state of mind that you need to cherish what you have right now because it can be gone tomorrow. And from that point on, I mean Detroit was treacherous to begin with, and then to get thrown into a combat zone, man, that definitely shocks your manhood. It definitely puts you in a position that you can't imagine. And a lot of people may not understand that because being in war is completely different than street war. I mean, because these are people, who are aiming to kill you just for being American, just to be an offender or a defender. Um, and the, the street wars, these are people just want to kill you because of an affiliation, a misunderstanding, or something. And I don't mean it to sound lowly, because losing any human life is a is a situation that shouldn't happen under those circumstances. circumstances. Although at the same time, it's a different level when it comes to fighting for your country, you know, and someone dying because of it. You know, there's a lot of honor behind it. Um, but on my arrival back is when I ended up getting married. But that whole experience, it did a number on me, and I had to take a break. I literally got out the military after I did like maybe a year or so after coming back from deployment because I was dealing with a lot of PTSD issues that I had no idea about at the time, and I just needed a break. So I took a break, and then I went back into the military, and then got deployed to Iraq, and it was a totally different situation because I had changed jobs due to the nature of the job that I was in. I've seen my face on a wanted poster before, and I was like, oh, well, when I was out in Afghanistan, I was like, oh, well, you know, got to change this job. This isn't, I don't want my face on a wanted poster. So yeah, it was a good experience, but it had its times.
You know, what branch was that you went into again, please?
I was in the army.
Let me thank you as well, my brother, for your service, my fellow veteran. Let me acknowledge acknowledge that and thank you for sharing that very vulnerable and that very unique
No problem.
part of yourself. You know that makes you different from so many people already. How does that, how does knowing that make you feel, and how do you interact with others that are non-military as a man now, and you have to have grown to that place?
Um, Honestly, I don't really talk about any of my military experience. The only time I really have those conversations are with fellow veterans or maybe employers. Um, but for the most part, I don't hold myself in a different regard than others when it comes to my military service. I
Mhm.
mean, because I still got paid to do a job, just like everyone else in this country does who has a job. I
Okay.
mean, though my job may be in defense of the country, or it may have been in the defense of the country,
Yeah.
it's still a job, no less, that is contributing to the overall success of the direction that we want to go as a country. Apparently, I'll hold that comment in reservation, but you understand where I'm coming from.
Yes.
Um, but I don't normally, associate. I mean, even when I was going to college, they asked me if I wanted to sign up for, disabled services because I do have disabilities from my military service for so long. I was in for 10 years, and that puts they say for every 5 years in the military is like equivalent to like eight. So it put a wear and tear on my body, but at the same time, it's not so much to the point where I'm, at a detriment to living a normal life, or a detriment of not living a normal life. I mean, there's some things about my lifestyle in which I had to change, but it's all an adaptation for me. But as far as being treated differently for being a veteran, I I don't ask for any handouts. I don't. The most I ask for is, hey, you got a military discount? That's about it. But I don't expect any accolades from anybody because once again, I'm sure if people were in my position and they had the opportunity to make the decision that I made based on their circumstances, they might have did the same thing that I did. So
Awesome. Okay. Now, another thing is, or another question is, do you think that something could have prepared you to go into combat um, any better than the military, or along with the military? Do you think there was something on the outside that someone could have shared with you to help with that, to help with the emotional capacity of that, or no?
yeah, definitely. Like I said, the streets of Detroit definitely prepared me. for learning how to deal with loss. Um, so there was nothing new to me when it came to taking losses of life when it came to joining the military. I mean, it was almost expected. It sucked when it happened, though my recovery time was a lot more expedited than those who had never experienced loss before. So I will say in that aspect, not in a good way, but I mean that's the only thing that I had experienced beforehand of learning how to cope with military life that actually improve my ability to maintain steady while being in the military.
Mhm. And when you got married, going back home and realizing that need a break, things are different. How much different do you think things could have been with your relationship had you not been in the military and exposed to combat? Do you think that would have made a difference in your relationship?
Um, I think there would have been definitely a different trajectory um, when it came to how my relationship went. Although I don't believe that the outcome would have been any different because the issues of why that relationship did not work were mainly because of a situation that I wouldn't have had any knowledge about of how to handle anyways. Because you got to remember that the problems that I stated that occurred in that relationship, I had never dealt with before.
Uh-huh.
So therefore, even if I was not in the military, I still would have been faced with the same challenges and not having the proper tools in order to address that situation properly enough to maintain that relationship successfully.
Yes. Hold on one second. I'm going to email Judge Gray really quick. He just chimed in. In the meantime, would you mind engaging the chat room? Let's see if we have any questions for you or any comments before I do that. And how are you doing right now? You doing okay?
Yeah, yeah, I'm totally fine. Let's
Okay,
see.
Judge said he was asleep. Okay, no worries. I got you, Judge Gray. But you should be bright-eyed and bushy-tailed now. And but we're going to continue with you once I get him. I just want to go ahead and count him up here and have him ready. Is that okay?
Okay, that's cool. Amanda Gethers, I believe it is, has a question. It says, serving the military, do you feel it was for the purpose they say? Um, no, I don't believe it was for the purpose that most people say. A lot of people say because they're patriotic. I mean, I made a video on I made a video and I talked about the topic of self-serving. I mentioned it in one of my videos. I don't remember which one it was, but I don't believe there is a such thing as selfless service. Selfless service implies that you set yourself aside completely in order to progress with someone else's agenda. That's not really factually true if you think about it. I tell people all the time, giving your life for someone else is the highest form of sacrifice that one can make, though it is not completely selfless because you have to have within you the fortitude to make the decision of being okay with giving your life for someone else. So it takes you having to want that situation, regardless of how much of a sacrifice it is, in order to make that decision to sacrifice. So,
If you had to do it all over again, Wolf, would you do it all over again?
yeah, most definitely, most definitely. I mean, that question. If you go throughout years of my life and ask me that question, it could have changed a few times. I can tell you that as being true. Um, but as of right now, I I tend to lean more towards the idea that I wouldn't do anything different again. I mean, because I think I mean it's often said that the sum of a person is their past, and I'm fine with who I am. I mean, I went through a lot of trials and tribulations to get here. I mean, and I'm still striving to become more. But at the same time, I don't think I would take any of those situations out because they made me who I am.
Mhm. Okay. And how has your outlook on life changed since joining the military and upon exiting and everything that you have experienced? How has it helped shape you into who you are right now? And are there any challenges that you think it helped prepare you for?
Well, I would akin, my ability to be successful in that to my early childhood development. It's when I started to formulate the wolf and the one in beta clothes as well. Um, and it progressed through my life, and it's helped me now because a lot of times when people come out of the military who've been to combat or who have experienced any traumatic experience while being in the military, they have a hard time adjusting to civilian life. Um, while at the same time, the wolf took in a lot of the brunt when it came to fighting back the aggression, fighting back with aggression rather. Um, I still have the ability to master myself and adapt to the situation as needed be. I mean, there were certain circumstances that I couldn't adapt to fast enough, but for the most part, I've adapted very well when it came back to transitioning to civilian world. I mean, because once again, I uh, make a focal point of accepting the reality as it is to be my guide when it comes to making decisions. So I have to accept that this is the way things are, regardless of what I want them to be, and I just move forward from there.
Do you think your military experience has helped you in your parenting?
Oh yeah, most definitely. I was not that structured growing up, of course, um, because of uh, my parents not investing a lot of structure into me. I mean, they gave me small fundamentals, but to survive as an adult, no, they didn't. They failed in their area. A lot of the things that I learned came from me uh, getting punitive backlash from the military. I've never really got in trouble, but if anything was out of place from what the standard was, oh yeah, you definitely got punishment behind that. Um, and it didn't necessarily have to be, uh, the normal things that people think of as court martial and articles and such. These are the punitive things that the military does to people when they're way out of line. So I never went that far, but there were times I had to do extra duty and stuff because I was late or I had to mop a whole battalion because I didn't show up at the right place on time. So it definitely gave me that structure I needed and that discipline I needed in order to function into what I understand to be life is now.
Okay. And in terms of your relationships, you mentioned in my chat room recently that you are not romantic, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
does, does what you consider that element of you, do you think that that is mainly because of you being in the military, the lack of seeing that kind of relationship growing up, or a combination of them both, or anything else?
Uh, I think it's mostly akin to me not seeing what romanticism is. And then I later learned, going through college, that romanticism isn't a derivative of African culture. We have things that we can describe as being romantic, but romantic is mostly a European invention. Um, not saying that it doesn't, once again, not saying that it doesn't exist in the black culture and, the black diaspora, if you will. But at the same time, this is not an invention of ours. So it was hard for me. It's hard for me to embrace things once I realized that they do not come from my culture. This is also why I don't celebrate a lot of holidays, because they are derivatives of pagan rituals. Um, so I don't, none of my history comes from paganism. So I can't bring myself to practice something that isn't a part of
Uh-huh.
me. Um, so that plays partly into it, me learning that, but it mostly got started with um, me never seeing it, me trying it, and me failing at it. It's just never been a part of me ever.
What is what is masculinity to you?
Masculinity, simply put, is a man's ability to stand on principalities.
Okay. So when you hear the terms used, like what's in the manosphere, or shall we say against the manosphere, when you hear toxic masculinity, what does that say to you? And how does that make you feel, if anything?
Toxic masculinity is nothing but a smokescreen to me. Um, it's basically a misdirection, because it implies that first, anything that's toxic is not good for you,
Mm-hmm.
and there is no part of masculinity that is not good for a man. It is not That is not good for a woman. There is no part of masculinity. We can definitely say when a man is being masculine and when he's not. I think what they want to say, if they are going to say anything, is that there are attributes that men show that are toxic, but it isn't necessarily toxic masculinity. I don't believe that exists. So,
Mm-hmm. Okay, good answer. Do you mind sharing why or what are you finding or what were you seeking in the manosphere?
um, I actually came to the Manosphere by way of Sandman. Surprisingly, I think most people have heard of him, but it came about because I'm one to seek out answers for what I experience in my reality that I can't explain. I'm a ponderer by nature. I tend to be a observationalist when it comes to trying to figure out things. I was always that when I grew up. I mean, especially in Detroit. Detroit, things would pop off and you wouldn't understand what happened or why. There was no dialogue, so you had to be very observant of your environment. Um, to stay alive, pretty much. Because, like I said, there was no conversation had for a lot of these situations. I believe that's probably where the word on site came from. I mean, because it was literally that. Um, so when it comes to explaining a lot of things that I don't understand, I normally seek external things. I it's only so far that I can go inside myself and find answers. So I started to look on the internet and type in keywords from the things that I was seeing, and then MGTOW popped up, and I was like, huh, what's this? So I started watching video after video after video, and I'm like, there are many other men experiencing the same reality that I can't explain. Let me get these answers. So through watchings of hundreds and probably thousands of videos and reading book after book after book, I came to understand that this isn't this isn't a case study. This is nationally spread. There isn't a place where we don't have these similar issues that we're discussing here in the manosphere. So I started to look for other content creators who discuss similar, I guess you could say, talking points, but they had different spins on them, and that's how I got introduced to the whole of the manosphere, and I started to understand that there was something here that was beneficial for me, so I stayed.
There is a, thank you for sharing. There is a perception, or shall we say, a belief that the men, a majority of the men in the manosphere are hurt. They're there because they want women, or they want black women um, to be a I don't want to say abused, but they want them to take the brunt, shall we say, responsibility for the hurt in some of the men from in the manosphere, and that the black men in the manosphere hate the black woman. Where do you stand on those perceptions?
Um, well, I think some of that may be true,
For
but
yourself,
those
I only want
say again.
I only want the audience to hear for yourself how it relates to you, so that you don't get so that you're
Oh,
separated from the generalization.
oh, how it relates to me. Well, it, it's kind of weird that well, I'm very much a believer in the scientific method. I believe that if you can recreate a situation enough times, then it has to be true. Um, and what I was experiencing is that other men were being recreated in these situations, and they went through the same processes in order to get to the point they are. And I was in denial about that. I was like, oh no, I'll be fine. But I eventually became upset about the information that I was learning. Um, and then I went to a state of denial. And then I went to a state of bargaining. And then I went to a state of just accepting. Um, I think I think for me, um, it may have been true some of those points at some time, but it was all based on my level of knowledge and understanding, and my ability to look within myself to see did it match my core beliefs. Um, so when it came to me, I guess you can say disliking black women or wanting to place blame on them, I did at one point. Honestly, I did because I hadn't learned enough about myself and enough about the reality that was passing me by that it was always there that I just didn't see, to make a very informed decision on how I should process my emotions and how I should act out. But then I started to come down off that high of anger, and I started to just say that this is a small group of men. There's no way that this could be the entirety of the problem. That's the denial portion of what the reality was telling me. Um, and then I started to say, well, if I critique or if I, change the way that I do things, maybe I can escape these truths. And that's the bargaining portion. And then I found out you can't really escape the reality. So I had to just accept things as I saw them. And that's where I am currently. So I went through a transitional state of different emotions and different states of mind based on my ability to learn and interpret the information. So to date, I don't hate anyone. I never hated anyone. Hate is such a strong word for me. That's cliche to say, but it's true for me. Um, did I dislike? Definitely. Do I still dislike? A little bit, but it's more about it's more about understanding. I will not make concessions at all, but I will explain um, what the reality is telling me. So
Has has you finding your way into the manosphere and going through that range of emotions and change, has it affected your relationship with your mother?
Um, no, it hasn't. Um, but at the same time, it's affected the way that I view her. Because I can look back throughout my lifetime and I can akin a lot of the things that she was doing to a general state of female behavior. And what I mean by general state is that these are things that most women would do given the circumstances. And this isn't a, a knock or anything. This isn't a bad versus good thing. It just is for me. Um, and I used to think a very, I used to pedestalize my mother very much so. And I used to think that she could do no wrong, if you will. But I had come to understand that she did things that were contrary to what my belief system was telling me about her. Because now I could use these tools to dissect what happened to me at a young age and explain um, the truth of the situation. I went back and I talked to my father about some of the things, and he confirmed that um, what was going on, what is what actually happened. So through that, I have, formulated a certain view about my mother, but I still love my mom. I don't think badly of her at all. I wish she had made different decisions based on the circumstances, but um, I mean, what is she to do without any specific guidance on making a different decision? I mean, because she didn't grow up with a father either. So,
Okay, that's good to know. So, how can the person that you become now, how can you lead a woman? What kind of leadership do you provide for a woman under this different understanding and this whole new, I would like to call it another awakening for you?
well, what I normally have to offer a woman is my wisdom, because like I said earlier, 5 years in the military is about equivalent to 8 in real life. Um, I learned a lot of things throughout my life that many men took a long time to get through. I was a very wise child at my age, and I'm still wise for my age. So I offer a lot of leadership in the way of wisdom and intelligence. I have the ability to adapt to most situations. There hasn't been a situation that I could not adapt to, no matter how bad the circumstances were. So I embody what it is to actually be a man, what I like to call a true man. Not a good man. I'm not a good man at all. I'm a true man. Um, and through that, I live my life. And through that, I could, impart my wisdom and my guidance through that woman who chooses to be under my tutelage, if you will. Um, and there have been many women who have tried, although at the same time, there have been many women who have failed. I am not a hard teacher, but I am a consistent teacher. I will always remind you, um, of where you stepped out of line and how you should correct that. Almost not immediately, but um, to a degree that you know that I'm there and you know that I'm watching. Sometimes I'll let situations go on about just so you can learn a lesson of how, if you had applied what I had told you, you would not be any circumstances. So now you have to take responsibility for this circumstance, and I will not pull you out of this situation because you created this all on your own, and I owe no responsibility for the decisions you made on your own. Um, so give, I give, and I teach. I guide and I direct. I'm very oriented into exactly where I want to go in life. So any woman who comes into my life, she will almost immediately understand or get an understanding of where I'm going. There's no guesswork. There's no, um, where are we going to be in the next 5 years, because I already have a plan. It's just now I have to add you to it. So what I have to offer a woman is direction, understanding, wisdom, and safety, pretty much. So
Okay, cool. Let's see. The leadership, the wisdom, the word protection. How do you feel, or what is your position on protecting random women that is not under your crest? And then what is your ideal of protection of the women under your crest, be it your daughters, the woman that you're seeing, women that you're seeing, however your status falls, and your mother.
um so when it comes to protecting random random women, um I don't have an issue with that. I've done that before, especially within the community. I mean, because wrong is wrong. I have principles that I stick by. I have things that I want to accomplish when it comes to my manhood. And one of those things I want to accomplish is making sure that the people around me are safe. And that even goes along at my job. I mean, I'm the first one to grab somebody some earplugs if we're working with a loud piece of equipment. It's just that's just who I am and who I've been. Um, so when it comes to my own women, I don't have a problem protecting them at all. Although at the same time, after the protection is getting done, I got a lot of questions for you. I'm wondering what's going on. How did we get here? And how can we prevent from going back to that situation if there's a conversation to be had in the space for that.
Mhm.
Um, but when it comes to uh, protection, what I view protection as is many things. It comes in many forms. Um, a lot of people often akin attract that protection to a physical thing, which it is most times. But you can protect someone by telling them, "Hey, you should probably buckle your seatbelt, before we go on this ride." Because the seatbelt is a safety device to prevent them from furthering their injuries if they get into a car accident. So giving someone direction and instructions could take the form as protection as well. Um, Another form of protection is, I like to say, behind the scenes work. Because men, we generally don't have lengthy conversations when it comes to the things that we do throughout our day, to make sure that our household is taken care of. So there are a lot of things that go on that women aren't aware of that men do in order to protect their families. Uh, but then it goes back to the regular protection. And the regular protection is, when there is a threat present, is mitigated. It's handled. It's taken care of to the best way possible and the most efficient way possible. And the last part of that question, you asked me about how I would protect my mother, or what was that last part? I didn't get that.
Yes, I was also asking how does that fit in regards to your mother?
How does protection play out in regards to my mother?
Yes, but
Um,
you pretty much just answered it in the realm of the other question, actually.
oh, okay.
So we
Okay.
actually move on past that. You have a couple of questions from Raw Honest Tea in the chat room, and she wanted to
Okay.
know. She said, "So would you let your woman suffer?" Ron is T. Before he answers that, I'd like you to elaborate on that a little bit more. So we're going to go to the next one, which is so you want to be a father figure. Do you want to be a father figure to your woman?
Well, that's always a very interesting question, and I've dug so deep within myself that I have an answer for damn near everything. But No, I don't want to be her father. I want to be her pseudo father. Um, because I can never take the place of her father. Although at the same time, a lot of the attributes that a husband or mate in a male position takes on are that of which a father does. Because if you really think about it, let's go back. When a father has a daughter, what does he do with her? He gives her direction on how to handle men outside of the household. He gives her direction on how to protect herself. He also protects her. He also provides for her. I mean, these basic fundamentals are what a husband does. I mean, if you really think about it, and throughout history, if you go back to uh, you know pre-contemporary, if you will, we gave our daughters away to another man. That was a semblance of a man uh, giving his authority as a father over to that man. It's so interesting that we as a society do these things all the time, but we don't understand the semblance of what they represent, and yet we are very accepting of these things happening. But when the truth of the situation comes out, that's when people start looking down at their nose at you a little bit. So that's my answer to that question.
Okay, so to the first question, what she was saying was, you, it seems as though you would leave the woman in the rest if she did not listen, so you would allow her to suffer.
Okay, so I can answer that quickly as well. So here's the thing. Um, I actually took a parenting class about 8 months ago. Just a parenting class um, over my children. One of the interesting things that they taught me in that class is that sometimes you have to let people, not just children, but people understand what unintended natural consequences are. So, for instance, I'll just build my way up to this, but for when you have a kid who is being hard headed, hey, I need you to get your jacket on because it's cold outside. I don't want to wear my jacket. The normal response for parents is to prompt the kid again and tell them that you need to get your jacket on, and then stay there until they get their jacket on and then go. Me, on the other hand, I say, okay, you don't want to put your jacket on? Fine. So we go outside in this 30-degree weather and they shiver automatically. That is a natural consequence. The consequence will teach them. I'm there, of course. I'm not going to let them die out in the cold. I'm there, of course, but I want them to understand. If they're not going to listen to me firsthand, then they have to pay the consequences of not listening to me. So they have to go through some sort of tribulation to understand why these principles are put in place. Sometimes you can't talk to people and get them to understand what you're saying. Sometimes you have to show them. And that's my way of showing them through natural consequences. Now, how this relates to a woman and how I deal with her. If I tell her, hey, you need to put this money in your account because I believe there's going to be something coming out of your account, at the end of the month. Well, I'm just going to, go ahead and, uh, not put that money in the account. And, I should have some money here soon coming up. Oh, okay. All right, cool. You got it all figured out. Good. Glad that you're on top of it. So when that situation comes about where her account becomes negative, oh yeah, you're right. I'm gonna let her sit in that situation. Though it comes at a detriment to our household, the lesson to be learned is much greater. Because now she understands that I know what I'm talking about because there were natural consequences that showed her. It's almost like a reinforcement for a person to get them to understand that what you were saying was correct to begin with. It's how you that's how you program a woman to trust you, in so many words. If I were to put the money in her account and she's seen it she wouldn't think of nothing about it. If she had disagreed with me and I just went ahead and put them in your account, she'd be like, oh well, thank you for preventing my account. Yeah, she'll be gratitude of. I mean, but she'll brush it off. It wouldn't be no hard consequence to be learned with that, because what I'm then teaching her is that even though she denies me, I got her back. No, that's not how that's going to work,
Mhm.
because there may be a situation that could be near life or death. Because remember, I come from the military where if you don't listen, you could lose your life. There could be a
Mhm.
situation in the future where I need her to follow my instructions and trust me that this is going to pan out. And if she doesn't, it comes to a severe detriment to our household, not just a couple of dollars, but
Mhm.
maybe a change of lifestyle completely.
Mhm.
So I need her to be on board. You train people how you want them to treat you. That's how I view that.
So great answer. So also in this situation, are you the sole provider, or do you want your woman to bring half and pay half?
Um, I never want a woman to pay half, because that represents too much for a woman these days. Not saying that she can't. I don't want her to. Um, and I probably wouldn't allow her. I would probably redirect the money into a savings account, something like that, and I would pay majority of the bills. Um, if she wants to work, that's totally fine, as long as the priorities of the household are put first. And why I say that is because that's what I'm here for. I'm here to mitigate. I'm here to protect her from the outside world.
Mm.
A lot of people, a lot of people are so accepting of other things, but not accepting of uh, some of the things that I say. But the things that I say are just on a smaller scale of what you already accept. If you really pay attention to the bigger picture, men created civilization to protect women from natural occurrences. Without civilization, we will be left out in the cold to fend for ourselves against nature. Civilization, once again, was created so that it can protect the woman from the outside natural world. On a smaller scale, why would that be any different? If I want to protect my woman and I want to have her protected in a certain way, I am going to create a situation that protects her from the outside world. This play is no different. We are so accepting of civilization, but we aren't accepting of taking the tutelage of someone who has the ability to protect directly right in front of us, until it comes to the day, oh, well, somebody's at our door, somebody broke into our house and they have a gun possibly. Can you get up? Like that's when it becomes important. But it wasn't important when I was saying, hey, um, I need you to make sure that the things are taken care of in this house so that I'm able to do my job to protect you from the outside world. You know, that's just the way I look at it.
Okay. Um, Ron T also said that men usually need, no, before I get to that one, I want to, this question she asked, does her plan matter?
Yes, her plan definitely matters, because well, first off, let me be clear about that plan mattering. I wouldn't be with a woman who has a different trajectory in life than I would. That's where we would stop talking and just be friends. So I wouldn't even attempt to be with a woman who wanted to live in Australia if I wanted to live in Japan. You know what I mean? Because we're on two different paths of what we want in life. I mean, we can be the greatest and best of friends. I've had plenty of situations where I had to stand on principle and make that hard decision that I didn't want to make because she looked so good. But I had to make it because there are things that drive me more than just my physical attraction for someone else. Um, so got that out the way. Um, if I'm with a woman, more than likely we have similar plans of what we want in direction of life. So yeah, of course her plan matters because a woman is a protector as well. It's just that women protect in a different way than men do. I oftentimes, I've said plenty of times to many people that I have a hypothesis about how masculinity and femininity is expressed. Masculinity, we have many representations of that in the physical world. But I ask people all the time, can you show me a physical representation of femininity? I mean, a lot of people, we have some, but for the majority of the physical world, there is none because femininity exists in the world that we can't see. Therefore, when it comes to a woman's protection, her protection comes in the form of protecting men against things that they cannot see. So definitely her plan is important because her part of the plan is the protection, the other portion of the protection that adds to my physical protection that makes a whole of both worlds. So that's my answer.
Okay. Mods, do me a favor, excuse me, Wolf. Mods, please warn people about self-promoting in the chat room and immediately remove any self-promotions and give them a warning. And if they continue, just go ahead and time them out, please. Thank you. And I want to welcome everyone to the chat, to the stream, and I want to thank you all for being respectful and being nice and socializing with each other. Let's see if we have any more questions. And I want to thank you, Wolf. I love the answers that you're giving. You're very direct and you're very clear and you're very concise. So
No problem. No problem.
precisely to these, okay, so she says precisely to these parameters are antiquated. Before that, she said her comment was men often lead the family into financial decline. And I'm going to let you respond to that. And I also have a comment for that as well. But please, what is your response to,
Sure. Well,
please?
well, my thing is, if you look on every dollar bill that we have, or every note that we have in the United States, whose face on it? A man. And this isn't because men are better than women. It's just that men were the ones who built the financial system. Not saying that every man is a great financial advisor, but at the same time, the derivative of civilization came from masculinity. Period. Um, there have been a few contributions from women that helped create civilization, but when it came to civilization being built, 99% of civilization around you was built by men. So it takes a man to be able to, uh, well, I can't say it takes a man, but the highest pinnacle that we can see successfully across the board with the numbers. Not saying that there aren't any women who can attain the same uh, attributes and express them the same way, but for the majority of the time, Wall Street is ran by men, and this isn't by accident. A lot of women akin this to them not being included in these spaces, but there is nothing preventing women from starting their own businesses and firms that do the same thing that they do down on Wall Street. There's nothing preventing them from doing that. Um, though, I could say that their business might be a little curved based on the fact that she's a woman, but she'll still get business as long as she does good business. Um, but once again, the majority of the financial rearing has always been the man's place because we built the financial system and we maintain the financial system. This is another reason why you don't see a lot of women doing dangerous job per se. I mean, because these jobs put women in great detriment. Um, and women are very protective of themselves. They are very protective of themselves. And I wouldn't, most men don't advise for their wife to go work down at the local construction factory or construction site when they're looking for a job. They're like, why don't you just get a little clerk job or become a medical assistant, even a doctor. I don't want you at a construction site. You know, because men understand that women hold a certain value, and We and women understand that they hold a certain value. That's the reason why men choose to be the most sacrificial out of the group between the two. Um, but I'm steering off into another topic. But my whole point of it is that the reason why uh, you know men are the head of the financial system and the finances is because we created it. We have the innate ability to run these things. There are things in this world that we each have innately through biology. I mean, it's always people accept the fact that men see better than women in the dark. It's been scientifically proven. Um, People accept the fact that women are better nurturers than men are. People accept these real things because science has backed them up. Not only does it back it up, we can see these things play out in real life. For instance, men are better at spatial recognition and directions than women are. Why is that? Because we needed those things 10,000 years ago in order to survive, to hunt. We needed to see in the dark because we were the hunters. Of course, we can see better in the dark than women could because they were not the hunters. Of course, we needed spatial recognition and directions because we needed to be able to navigate far away from home most times to hunt to bring food back to where we were and not have a map or a compass present. We needed these things biologically in order to make what we call civilization today. The financial structure is a derivative of masculinity because those are the people who started it. Usually, when it comes to the innovations of something, that's usually the derivative of a woman or a man, period. And that's the reason why these people do so well in these fields is because they are biologically geared to be in these fields. That's just the way it is. Once again, I'm not saying that this is 100% encompassing. There's nothing absolute in this entire universe. So don't take what I'm saying as law. But for the majority, men don't run the house into financial ruin. If you look at our economy today, most of the consumers of goods that we don't need are women. Men tend to save money. That's the reason why the banks are what they are because men back a lot of that stuff. When it comes to even taxes, women take up women take up majority of the revenue received from taxes, and men pay in majority of the revenue into taxes. That's just the way it is. A lot of people say that's sexist. Oh no, it's just the way it is. Men tend to work more hours, therefore they pay more taxes. That's just the way it is. Because we don't have to deal with bearing children. So we can work 14, 15 hours a day and we don't have to deal with coming home, to breastfeed. We don't have to do those things. It's just the way it is. You have to understand that civilization still is a derivative of nature. Without nature, we wouldn't be here. We all come from natural things. So it's silly to assume that those things go away just because we have a frontal lobe. We're still mammals. So that's my answer.
So, would you allow yourself to be romantically, or shall we say, intimately involved with a woman who was living in a who had good credit and she's in control of her finances and she handles her finances well? Would you be in a relationship with a woman that wanted to manage the finances of the house and still control the matter of finances, or would you prefer not to?
Um, I wouldn't mind it. I mean, because what I've learned throughout my lifetime is that um, I'm so grounded in my principles that
Hmm.
people either get with it or they don't. So if a woman is willing to stay around based on me standing on the principles that I have shown her and that I have expressed to her,
Hmm.
then most definitely she can stay around because what's going to end up happening, and I've experienced this before, um, to a degree where a woman pointed out to me. She told me because she was running her household. She had been for many years, but she knew that once she got with me, things were going to change. And she said, I'm not sure if I want to get with you because I understand exactly what your direction is in life. And we didn't ever get together, but I would have been with her because she would have had no choice but to conform to something that was stronger than what she held on to. And what I mean by that is that she kind of didn't want to be the breadwinner. She was forced into that situation due to her own decisions, though. But she stepped up to make things happen for her children, which is still commendable, you know. Although at the same time, when you as a woman come across a man who has a direction, he, you can never outman a man if you're not a man. You know, that's just one of the things that a lot of women come to the understanding of. I say that, a lot of women who aren't with men and don't want to be with, they just haven't met that that masculine man that fits with them. That's just all that amounts to me. So yeah, I would totally be with her because if she wanted to be with me, then she was definitely on board with the direction that I was going. So
Hold on one second. Let me try to send Dre the link again. And while I do that, I'm going to say it has not been my experience where men were running the household into financial decline. I've seen it both ways with men and women. And so I think I think that's why it's very good for you to get to know people and see how and where they are in these kind of situations and how you can benefit or not benefit, you know because surely a man can't provide if he's in financial decline. You know what I'm saying? And if he's already in decline, he's not going to be offering to be a provider, more than likely. Would you say the same, Wolf?
yeah, most definitely, most definitely, I definitely agree with you on that.
Okay.
Because well, here's the thing people have to understand. You can't personalize the generalization. Once you personalize the generalization, you totally are paying attention to the tree instead of the forest. Because your life isn't the only one that exists on this planet Earth. Therefore, there are other situations that may be the majority that you just have not ran into. I mean, for instance, China is majority homogeneous Asian. But just because I haven't ran into any Asians where I live at, am I going to say that the number of Asians are small?
Mm-hmm.
China is one of the biggest populated countries in the world. Just because I haven't seen any doesn't mean that there aren't millions there. You can't personalize the generalization.
Ooh,
Okay, though. I hear. Can you hear me? Hello.
we can hear
Yeah,
you in the background. That's right.
Okay, though.
Mute your mic and welcome. But mute your mic. Okay. All right, so we just got Judge Dre up on, but we're still right now still with the Wolf in Beta Close. Let me ask you this question. So, in terms of dating, have you learned a different process since your marriages and divorce? Have you learned a different process of getting to know or dating women that helps you to build a,
most definitely. Go ahead.
that helps you build a more solid foundation, or could aid in a solid foundation?
Yeah, yeah, most definitely. One of my principles that I go to now is that, and it may sound a little strange, but I don't have a particular time frame for this, but I don't normally engage in any sexual talk with a woman for some time. That is not one of my go-to conversations when it comes to getting to know her,
Really?
because I feel that if if we have a connection, that'll just happen naturally. So it's not really ever on my mind when it comes to getting to know her. And any woman that comes at me, strongly, I kind of reject. Not because I don't appreciate her level of interest in me, but because she's, to me, jumping into a situation that she doesn't fully understand. Because I'm me. I can't compare myself to any other man, and I won't compare myself to any other man. But I understand that I have a high level of principalities when it comes to me, and any woman that is willing to jump at just the mere physical interest in me isn't one that I want to take on, because she isn't assessing that there is more to me than just what she sees.
Interesting. So that also entails that you exercise what I would call discipline.
Most definitely.
Hmm. Okay. Thank you. You've offered some great gems. Another thing I want to get into now, though, is mental health. But before we get into that, I want to go ahead and welcome Judge Dre to the panel and the discussion. And Judge Dre, we're going to be getting to you shortly after we finish up with the wolf. And then I might actually have some questions for both of you all or some way for you guys to engage. But right now, I just want to welcome you to the panel, Judge Dre. You can unmute your mic and say hello if you can. He's like,
Ready to go.
he's got his mic muted. Okay. Well, while we wait for him to get that together, because he will, and he'll chime in. So, about the mental health, have you learned anything different, or do you have another method, I should say, of getting to know information about a woman's mental stability or the lack thereof now after having your experience with your first wife?
um, that's been a hard one for me, um, because I I don't want to hold that against anyone, because I go through my own issues as you know, like I've stated before, I have PTSD, and that's something that just doesn't go away. I mean, I've encountered a lot of women that have PTSD from their past. Um, Although at the same time, I have to have some level of self-preservation in order to make the situation between us a cohesive one. um, so that's always been a struggle for me, to figure out where to draw the line when it comes to a woman's mental health. Usually, where I draw the line is when it becomes disrespectful, or there's no level of accountability. When it because mental health is a strange subject, because it has a lot of gray lines at where does a person's psychosis end, and where does the beginning of the accountability begin. you know uh for instance, like, let's say someone with autism. We look at them and we look at their behavior as erratic, but we blame it. Oh, that person's just autistic. you know but at what point do you start holding them accountable for their actions, and you don't blame their autism? So that's always been something that I've rivaled with, but I've come down to uh, like I said, a self-preservation, to where, like I said, if the person becomes disrespectful, or they become unable to take accountability,
Mm-hmm.
because there is accountability in mental health. I check myself in. So I don't give anyone that excuse of, well, I'm just going through stuff. Well, who are you talking to about that? Are you taking any medications? Are you trying to fix this issue, or are you just sulking? And that's when I'm like, I'm out. If you're not doing anything about it, or if it becomes disrespectful, I'm out.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I deal with that one.
Okay. I like that you're not afraid to approach the situation, or you're not afraid to approach the conversation. That takes some maturity, and especially considering the PTSD that you have your own battle with, to be able to address it and lay your own vulnerability out there really says a lot. Says a lot about who you are as a man, your masculinity, and your strength as well. And it also says a lot about your emotional availability as well as stability.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So do me a favor, if you will, we're going to go ahead and jump into Judge Dre a little bit, give him an introduction. I'd like you to just fall back though, and because I may come back with you later and have something to ask both of you, inquire both of you. Is that okay?
Sure, that's
Thank
fine.
you so much. Um, welcome, Judge Dre. Have you unmuted your mic, or did you get on the panel and fall asleep? Which I am no one to judge because if anyone knows your girl, Reigning Woman will fall asleep on a panel. Not cute, but oh, but you know, like so. Anyway, I'm going to also go through while we wait because I'm pretty sure that he's there. Just probably need to unmute or walk back towards the phone, computer, or something. So, y'all, we were just speaking with Wolf, the wolf in beta clothes, and I became acquainted with him, began getting acquainted with him through the manosphere and through another channel with supportive sister Kendra D. He has recently been dropping content on his channel. So, Maz, if you could please go to the Wolf and Beta Clothes, go to his channel and his link, and please drop his link in the chat room. And thank you all for being respectful and for being social in the chat. I will see if we have any questions while we wait on Judge Dre or any comments. You've had quite a few people that you may be familiar with also in the chat. Are you familiar with Cortez Smith and you're a designated shooter?
No, I'm not
You're not?
actually.
Okay. I thought maybe you might be because I know they sometimes are around in the manosphere. And I think they're also familiar with Kendra D. Maybe. Let's
Yeah,
see.
I'm very new to this side of the manosphere. So,
Oh, so I caught you when you were fresh?
hmm
Oh, okay. Jack Spade made a comment to BB Silks. That's where the wisdom and courage of the elders to be a part of the vetting process. The vetting process, right? It seems as though any elders who voice a disagreement, they are shamed by the majority. Yes, in times past, should still be now. We don't really. Now, too many people still live or go by use those same guidelines. Unfortunately, Cortez said he subscribed to your channel actually a few weeks ago. Okay, awesome. So, everyone, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go into actually a little music break while we wait on Judge Dre. Do you have anything else that you would like for the listeners to know specifically about you, the wolf, and Beta Clubs?
sure. I'll talk about a little bit of my content, I guess. Um, my content, I want to take a different spin on it. Um, I'm definitely not a motivational speaker, but a lot of people probably would akin my topics to motivational speaking. But when I talk in my videos, majority of the situations that I explain are things that I have experienced in my life. These are just principles and fundamentals that I explain through my lens. The reason why I chose to do it this way is because it's going to build into different topics, but I want to lay the groundwork of the fundamentals of what I believe, so that if there are ever questions about how I came to that I guess you can say, conclusion, I can refer them back to my earlier videos that deal with the I guess you can say the fundamentals of my framework. But I believe the fundamentals are very important in life. Too often we do them, but we don't account them as steps. It's very important that people are cognitive of the decisions that they make and the steps that they take to get there, so that they may recreate that when they are faced with similar trials and tribulations. So my channel is more geared towards um, helping people understanding what these fundamentals are, and also how these fundamentals play out in my life and maybe others.
Okay, that was a great explanation. I like a disclaimer that you're not a motivational speaker. Okay, well, we're going to go into a small music break. But I'm going to turn the music up and let everyone enjoy the music for a minute, and we'll be back. And you can engage the chat room. Feel free.
Cool. I'm just reading some of the old stuff.
Hello? Okay. What
Really?
the
Now,
I don't know what. Wait a minute. I don't see something. I'm having a problem here.
well, we're on a slight music break right now, just Dre. So now that we have you back and you're unmuted, just kind of engage the chat really quick, and we'll be right back. right, everyone, and the music playing in the background, that is music by Dr. Sax Love, and this is from his Fireplace Jazz Collection. So if you're enjoying that, you can definitely mosey on over and check him out. He also has merchandise as well. We've just spent some time with the wolf and beta clothes, and we're now going to learn a little bit more about another familiar face to me from the manosphere and a few other channels, and this is Judge Dre. Judge Dre, is your mic unmuted? And are you ready? Judge Dre, is your mic unmuted and are you ready?
Yeah.
Welcome, Judge Dre. Welcome to the womb for Womb Conversations. How are you? Can you hear me okay, Judge? Does the
Yeah, I'm here.
okay, the long pauses after the person has me wondering if the white man has his boot on your mic.
No, no, white man. I went and got it back from the white man. I had to pay, the loan on it that I had taken. Like Loan Max came and got it. I just thought, okay, and he's like, all right, cool. I'll take the boot off of it.
Well, welcome
Like
to
Loan Max, huh?
well,
Yeah.
welcome to the womb and womb is a safe place you will be fully expressed. Any questions that you do not answer, you're more than welcome to decline. But
Mm-hmm.
definitely where you can also be, where you will also be fully respected. You will be heard out, and this is so that we can learn, we can grow, we can help others and be a blessing. And we can nurture and cultivate. That is what womb conversations is all about. And exchange energy, masculine and feminine. So welcome again to the womb conversations.
Okay, doke.
So, Judge Dre, are you familiar
Mhm.
with our other panelists, the Wolf and
No,
Beta?
I've never heard of it before.
Oh, okay. Well, Wolf meet the judge, and Judge Dre meet the Wolf and Beta clubs.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
All right. So, Judge Dre, you are known. You're
You
with
going in and out, or is that just on my end?
how is this? Might be everybody.
Yeah, because
Can
let
you
me
hear
see.
me, Wolf?
It's like I hear you, but it's sometimes choppy, or is that YouTube?
Is YouTube trying to hold me back and stop me from being great?
Oh, well, I guess so. Now, see, now it's clear.
Okay, well, knock it off, YouTube.
All right, tell them.
I'm gonna tell him, Judge. First of all, tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself. So you're Judge Dre is what you go by here, and why Judge Dre?
Well, I call myself Judge Drake. I try to be level and fair, to both sides. Now, I've learned that being fair to both sides usually causes you to be an easy target because a lot of people, if you don't come out and agree with them 100% on what they say, usually that can start a lot of beef or people think you're taking another side. And it's like, dude, I'm not taking this side. I'm just saying, look at this, that, or the other.
Oh, okay. So did you initially come on YouTube as Judge Dre, or did you transition to Judge Dre?
I used to use my real name at first, actually. So a lot of people who know me from back in the day actually know my real name. But when I started my own show on my own channel, I changed the name. The name was Judge Dre because it was a debating platform. So basically, I would try to be, neutral and then try to give, and look at both sides of the argument, you know. So even though, like you can say, well, we should do it this way. That's true. That's the way we should do it. But we're just going to consider the other side, and I'll try to consider the other side. Consider, as they say, consider the other people whose ways it didn't go. And a lot of people can't do that without, being, like I said, they're always biased to one side or another.
Okay. And so was that between men and women, or was it between any other groups, or just in general? Tell me a little bit how the foundation of that.
Well, I mean, definitely a lot of groups, because it's hard to side with people who are more, to lean to the middle, because what happens is you're not on the left, you're not on the right. And then if you're not one of the ones who does personal attacks at people, so basically they'll personally attack you, but you won't attack them. So that always makes you look, a lot of people will look at you instead of being strong, they'll look at you as being weak because you didn't fire back. But when you're in the middle, you're gonna get flack from both sides.
Okay, my question is that between men and women or any other groups?
I say more, probably more between men and women.
Okay. Wow. Okay, so and what made you delve into that?
I always thought it was fun to have the debates, as long as people didn't take it too personally and get to where, people want to meet up offline to fight, physical fight over somebody's opinion, because that's all really it is. It's just your opinion.
So you
You know,
want
to,
to create some kind of balance.
right, to create some kind of balance, and then to show people that just because I feel this way and I think this way, you know, realize where someone else is coming from that feels this way and thinks the opposite. So you can take that in consideration. It may not change your mind, but also take their thought and opinion into consideration.
Gotcha. Nice concept. Like that. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about who you are and your background. Are you a are you married, divorced, um,
Now,
children?
now I'm 41 years old. I stay in Cleveland, Ohio, a suburb of Cleveland. Um, 3 kids. I'm single at the time. Never been married.
3 children, never been married,
Hmm.
live in Ohio. Okay. Did you come from a background of a mother and father living in the same house or a broken?
No, I actually came from a background of I was raised by mostly women. That's why a lot of people look at me and say, "Wow, how can you be so?" Look at the other side all the time, and you were raised by women who are mostly used to thinking their way is the only way. But no, I was raised by women, and I noticed. I guess growing up, some people, depends on your environment, you adapt to realize, okay, fine, this is what mom or grandma wants. All right, well, just look at the other side. Let's see what does someone else want other than what they want.
Mhm. Did you have a father or a father figure in your life at all?
My father was around, but like I only saw him a handful of times. I say after about six, I didn't really hardly see him at all. Um, it was a couple men that I'd always gravitated to where they would show me a thing or two. That's basically how I learned a lot of the skills I have from them. Like I work on homes for a living. I'm a contractor. A lot of things I was either self-taught or I was, always apprentice helping someone else.
How has that had an impact on your masculinity and learning how to be a man growing up?
Mm, I guess because I was around a lot of women, I realized that, yeah, I get tired of some of the shit that women actually do. But I think that I learned it too, that, I always had men that I could talk to, and I realized that some of them just told me, yeah, women act like this. And a lot of the times there was nothing you could do about it because they have certain advantages. Like arguments pursues, the police come, they're going to take their side, or they're going to take their opinion with more weight than they're going to do yours. So you got to learn how to conduct yourself accordingly. Under no circumstances do you ever show any anger, and you try to remain calm, you know, as much as you can, because you're looked at as the one who actually has the strength and the power. So you're the threat.
Trying to remain calm, does that mean avoiding dealing with your emotions or denying having emotions?
I say try to avoid, but not don't deny. I think that too. A lot of times, that a lot of men have been brought up thinking that you are not allowed to have any feelings. You're not allowed to feel, mad, angry, upset, or whatever. They always tell you like suck it up or whatever. But I've learned from experience and also what I've seen. Not saying how you feel or what you think can damage you just as much as just keeping it all in.
So, with that being said, how do you address
How do I address what? I couldn't hear you.
your emotions?
Well, I try to speak my mind, when I can. I try to never make any rash decisions, even when I'm very upset. I notice most of the time, you live by a certain couple of rules. Hope most of the time you can keep yourself out of these trouble. Never make any rash decisions. Don't make any decisions based out of anger, or and if it's a big decision and you're upset, always take a couple hours to think about it, especially if it doesn't have to be made immediately.
How does that play a role in your relationship with women?
Ugh. I guess that sometimes, like I said, it's with me being kind of neutral. That can sometimes be a problem because I've had women feel, I don't feel like you're on my side. Well, how am I not on your side? I'm the one that, is helping you do everything you need to do. But, you have to realize that not everything is going to be your way. You're not going to get things you want your way. I'll say like this: average in life, probably maybe 30% of the stuff is gonna go your way. If you're getting more than 30% of the things your way, you're probably spoiled and just don't realize it. And you probably alienated a lot of friends who would have been there for you, but they realize you're too self-centered.
You say you have 3 children, right?
Mhm. Yes,
You have girls and boys, all girls, or what are their
I
genders?
have. I have three boys. I mean, three children: 19-year-old boy, 16-year-old boy, soon to be 17, and 15-year-old girl.
2 boys and a girl?
Yes.
Okay, so how do you teach your boys dealing how to deal with their emotions and how to develop into a man, given that you were raised by women mostly and did not
Mhm.
have for the past 6 years old and
Mhm.
and being involved somewhat in the manosphere.
Well, I try to tell my sons that it's certain things they need to know. I mean, unfortunately, I tell them the harsh truth immediately. I don't shield nothing from children on that aspect, because I tell them in the real world nobody gives a fuck about your feelings. And I don't say that to be mean, but once you realize that this is how the game is played, you'll be ready suited to play the game. Because life is like I say, life is a bitch, and then you die. And I try to tell them that, and know that, hey, realize that things are not going to always go your way, and you're going to have to sometimes do things you don't want to do, or sometimes you have to put others ahead of you. Now, don't put others ahead of you who wouldn't do that for you if the situation was reversed. Try to treat people how you want to be treated. Realize that, hey, not everybody is your friend, and you need to keep your circle of friends actually pretty small. It's okay to network and have plenty of associates, but your real friends, keep that network a little bit smaller. I said with my daughter, I will admit we're not as close as we should be. I had an incident with her mother, and everything was fine, but then she got into his, hey, I want to do everything my way. I don't need your opinion for shit. And I'm one of those, well, hey, if I can't make any say so, I'll just send you the money. What's the point? You don't want my opinion. You don't want to take anything I say into consideration. You just want the money. And that's basically what it's been. And this didn't change until she was about 13 years old.
That didn't change till she was about 13 years old. Your
Yeah, I mean, to where she wants to do everything her way. And I believe too, we had got back together for a stint, and then we broke up, but everything was still fine. And a couple months later, that's when she showed her behind on that, and it was just like, okay, fine, just pay your child support, this, that, and the other, and because I want she wanted to control 100% aspects of our daughter's life, and I told her, well, if you're going to control everything, and I have no say so or nothing in it, then what's the point of me being around?
so you're not active in your daughter's life.
No, I'm not.
Your son and your daughter are from different women.
Yes, I have 3 by 3.
Is it safe to assume that you don't exercise discipline?
When I'm not even gonna lie. When I was younger, I didn't always. I didn't exercise it as much as I should have. I don't lie when it comes to my situation. I probably done told the story so many times. People have probably heard it already. But that young kid is gone. This old man is all that's left now. That's the reason I tell my story is to prevent other young people from making the same mistakes I did.
Exactly, exactly.
You
And
know,
that's what we're here to do. So you kind of said old man, but you're not really old. You're what, 30,
41.
41?
Mm-hmm.
No one's calling that old. I don't know that's you a little bit more experienced. No,
My kid tells me that's old.
I'm not your child.
Right.
We're just gonna say that you're mature. You're of mature age is what we're gonna say. So we have feedback in someone's background. Okay, so how has or how do you feel? How your inability to be active in your daughter's life? How
Hmm.
does that affect you, and how does that affect your sons?
Well, at first, I'm pretty sure. I said kids are highly adaptive. They can really adapt to a situation. A lot of times, us adults don't realize how well kids can adapt because she used to come around often, and when she didn't, then of course they adapted. They realized what the situation was. They know that this is the thing. Dad doesn't play. So in my situation is kind of unique, and I have to play things very strategically. I have to treat them all the same because you don't, especially because you don't want the one child thinking that, oh, you was head over heels for my mom, so you treat me better than the others. So usually I try to adapt rules for all of them. The rules are the same for all of you. I don't play that way. It's no favoritism, and also that keeps less fighting down between them. I haven't had any fighting like with the women fighting each other. I've had them fighting me.
Oh my
I can remember one big fight. I always sit there and laugh. One year, my daughter wanted an iPod Touch. My son wanted a video games. So I bought my daughter an iPod Touch. And that was like 240 bucks. And I bought my son. They wanted each a video game. I bought them the games that they wanted. So basically, it was like 240, 60, 60. The next year, my son wanted the new game system. But my daughter only wanted this doll setup that was only like 80 bucks. So I bought him the game system and I bought her what she wanted. I remember my daughter's mother getting mad at me saying that I spent more on her on them than I did on her. And I said, I bought the child what the child wanted. I said, last year I spent $250 on an iPod Touch for her. The boys only got a video game. This year they got a video game, a system, and she got the doll she wanted. I said, why are you making such a big deal of it? And I bought the children what they wanted. That's what they wanted. That's what I bought them. I said, you weren't complaining last year when your daughter got the biggest item. I
Hmm.
said, sometimes I just looked at people they look to bring fights and conflicts into things that don't need to be fought about. Sometimes I always, sometimes people think everything is a competition and they always have to come out on top, or they can't say, well, yeah, I might have won, but I do agree with this, that, or the other. They can't do that.
But now, with you not being active really with your daughter, do you think that she's going to have any issues from that, or how do you desire to absolve her from any emotional issues from your absence?
I said, I'm pretty sure she'll probably have something, but I'm pretty sure there will be some consequences to that. But it was her mother's choice to do that. It was her mother's choice to keep her away from me. And then after a while, her mother had seen the crap because me and her were together for a while as our kids was older. She saw the type of games that she play, and I'm like one of those. You want to play a game with the child? I'm not the type of person to sit up here and fight you with over the shit. Fine, you want to play a game for the child, keep the child away? Well, that's your fault. And I'm not. Some women look at it as, oh, well, I've heard some people tell me, oh, I would fight for my child. This, that, and the other. Well, we're plain and simple. The other two, I'm there for them. So plain and simple. Why the hell? What's the difference for me being there for one more?
Mhm.
I said, you want to sit up here and put roadblocks in the way and stop me from being with the child? Well, hey, when she gets older, hopefully she'll realize that, hey, no, it was mine being an asshole. Why the hell would dad allow my brothers to have keys to his house, allowed to come and go when they please, and not me?
Herman Carter says in the chat room, he says, but you're the father, bro. I disagree.
Right. And I will admit, but that's two. That's probably this is. You probably you got a different way of thinking. This is the way I think. I'm not going to fight nobody over the crap. I'll do a little pushback. It's not like I'm not going to just roll over and get out, but I'm not going to fight you over the crap. You want to make it hard, then go right ahead.
Mhm.
And see, I think that's this is one of the problems I realize. Most of them tell me, I've had plenty of men tell me, "Oh man, I'd fight for everything," but I have never heard a person come out and say, "Well, no, man, that bitch should let you see your kid." Period.
Do you
I've never heard anyone say that. Period. They'll love to say, "This is what I believe you should be doing." Well, guess what? I'm not going to go through the stress like that. I'm one of those ones I can admit. I can admit to what I have done. I am man enough to do that. You may not like my answer, but I'm man enough to tell you my answer.
Mhm. Okay. So you'll be open then for later on in life if your daughter wants to come and reconnect with you and share your side of things.
Yeah, my children have like I said, the code to get in my house and keys to get in my house. Period. I mean, literally since they were young, they can come and go as they please. Like I said, yeah, even though I'm a single guy, I've told my oldest son, just say if you're gonna be at the house before I get there, just say send dad a text. Hey, dad, just letting you know I'm in the house, just so I know. But I'm not the type of person that bring women home like that, so it ain't like. But my thing has always been, my child should have a key to my house and I'm be allowed to come and go as they please.
Okay. Now, part of your story, Judge Gray, is the battle with the court system and child support. And that is something that you are very intentional and very adamant about sharing and helping other young men to get the lesson, to learn the lesson from you. Right?
Oh, definitely. I don't mind telling the mistakes and the dumb shit I did in life. One, it doesn't, that person I was then is not the person I am now.
Mhm.
But sitting up here hiding and trying to make it seem like I was all and I did everything right in life, that doesn't help anybody learn.
Mhm.
I'm not in a predicament where I can pay for somebody to get them in. It's like I said, I always say this: you can learn from two types of people: people who are super successful, or the people who made a lot of mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes to realize what I've done right, what I did wrong. And that way I can tell you, hey, don't do this. I did that. That's fucked up. It's going to fuck your life up. It's going to make you, make you have to work a lot harder. Don't do that. I've done it. You can see the consequences of it.
What would you say is one of the main mistakes that you made?
Oh, definitely. I'll say that when I was younger, I was too careless. And then I will admit, I was too careless. I didn't protect myself enough. Then I fell in love. I'll say this: I fell in love with a woman over lust and anything else more than anything, and I put up with a lot of shit. I'm not even gonna lie. You would think so much shit that I've been through with this woman that I was in love with. I could make every video Tommy did, O did, Angry Man did. Yeah, I sit there and laugh every time that they do a video. Yep, she did that to me too. She did that to me too. She did that to me too. I mean, literally. You would think that I would be bigger on that than saying that I hate black women. I
Right?
don't hate black women because I only date black women, but I do hate some of your actions.
Were you simping, Dre?
Was I simping? No, I ain't gonna lie. I just was head over heels in love. I mean, no matter what she did to me, I just put up with the shit because I loved her so much. I mean, I thought that she could do no wrong.
So what would be the lesson that someone could get from that experience right there? If you
Um,
did something different, what would it be? Or what would they be?
Especially as a man, unfortunately, I tell my sons, you got to put yourself first. You have to. Most of the time, you have to put yourself first because and look at our generation. The women were grown up to saying where the little girls were raised and the little boys were raised too differently. We were raised as boys. No, whatever you need to do, whatever you want. This, that. You need to take care of the woman, do this, that, or the other. The women were raised, we don't need to do for shit, this, that, and the other. Those two create a generation that they're in the same age group that are gonna conflict more because the women are thinking, oh, I don't need your ass for shit, where the men are thinking, well, I need to take care of you, and whatever you say is right. That creates a real bad society because the children and offspring from them will be really fucked up. Because one, the men are, instead of focusing on getting their finances right, securing a business or whatever, they're focused too much on the woman, where they need to be focused more on what they're trying to do so they can uh, create a generational wealth and raise a higher class family so that way your children have more than you did and then your children's children have more than you do. It's not a sustainable in that way. With that way that the men and women are being taught now. And I look at now, like a lot of the boys, they're getting like, it's like they're not even. I always say like this: women raise their daughters, but they love their sons, and
Mm.
that's why you see so many weak men now, or you see so many men that say in the, especially like look at any child from like 12 to like 25 in that range. You look at these people and you say, God, dog, these men are just weak. They're horrible. These are the type of people you're like, man, when we get old, how the hell are we going somebody going to take care of us when we're in the nursing home? Because these people sure can't do it.
So yeah, that's some good information. So you would have left the relationship sooner.
Definitely. I ain't gonna say that I should have left the relationship sooner. I should have just had a different mentality.
Mhm.
I should have had a different mentality with her. You know, and I think things would have been better. Like I said, if I could look back on things, like I said, my youngest son, I had him with me. I would have got him to move in with me a lot sooner. I should have, when I was fighting back when he was 6, 7, and everything didn't go down, and after all that fighting didn't get him. I do admit, for his sake, I should have fought again at another time and make sure that I got him. But I didn't have the money at the time. You're already being taxed the hell out. So basically, you got to work 70 hours a week just to get by. And if you don't have the money for a lawyer when it comes to fighting anything with a child, you're probably not going to get them. And that's the thing. You got to have the finances. That's why I tell these men, especially, make sure that you pick. You protect yourself. This is definitely because you have to not have a kid until you've known this woman at least 4 or 5 years. And that doesn't mean anything because you all slightly change once that child pops out. All of you do.
Would
That's where you see where the home training really will fuck, because you realize if you're with your man, and even if you two have a kid, a lot of time, a lot of women don't realize your man still comes first. He has to provide and protect the house.
say
Kid
that
comes
again?
second. And a lot of people can't come out and say that. He's the one providing and the house and protecting the house. He still comes first.
Hmm. Yes, I'm sure you may get some pushback on that.
Oh,
Did
of course, because it's against the norm.
because it's against the
But
norm.
right, but I mean, but here's the question: if he's not protecting and providing, then what do you get?
I co-sign. I completely agree with that.
Now, this is one of the things I sit here and laugh. Even in that, the children are a byproduct, and you have to realize that the children are going to get older and leave. I've dated a lot of women that now I sit here and I sit as soon as I hear them say, "Oh, my kids come first, this, that, and the other." Now I can see your kid coming first over somebody you just dating for a little while, but after you guys make that commitment to marriage and all that like that, no, he needs to fall into that role where he comes first. Otherwise, there's no point in him being in a relationship with you. And that doesn't matter if he's a child father, still the same thing. He still comes first. And I believe that sometimes we might sit up here and say, "Oh no, the child comes first. The child comes first." But nobody never actually thinks any further past that and say, "Well, wait a minute. No, the child does not come first." Because when the child thinks that they come first, they think that they have control and power in the household, and they don't.
So is it safe to say? Well, I don't want to say that it's safe to say that with the mentality that you have now, would you have even been in a relationship with either of your baby mothers?
You went out a minute. I can't hear you.
With the mentality that you have now, would you have been
Mhm.
in a relationship with either of your baby mothers?
Probably not. Probably not because I'm not gonna lie. I dated a lot of women who were extremely selfish, and I mean they've even admitted it because like one of our talking points was on that. I said, if you see, I'm pretty lenient on both this, but when I say sometimes is I was never one of those ones. As soon as I put my foot down and say no, we don't need to do that. We got to do this. I'm making the decision on this. This is how it's going to be. I understand that your feelings say we should do this way, but that is the wrong way. I've seen it done. I've talked to other men. I've had more experience in this department. And they're like, no, we're still going to do it my way. And it ends up being fucked up. And also, you just can't date any woman who's not going to let you call any shots. You're just not, you're going to, unfortunately, you women put too much emotion into decisions. Like I'll say this: how many billionaires do you know? Like when you see these billionaires in the world, How many of them do you know and you actually hear their children talk about them, talking about they're the best person in the world? You don't hear any of them. Most of the time, when you hear these billionaires and you talk to their kids, most of the time you're hearing drama or backlash because one, they're pushing their children to do the hardest. And I'm like this. They said, do billionaires think like this? Would you rather, would you rather your kid love you from under a bridge or hate you from the back of his Bentley? I would rather my child hate me from the back of his Bentley because I pushed him.
Hmm. Okay. So now let's go ahead and talk about the court system. How old were you when you got pulled into child court?
Uh, it was different with each one. My youngest child, I was put. My oldest one child, I wasn't put on child support until he was 12. Actually,
How old were you?
he was 12, so I had to be what, like 32 on him. My youngest, I was put on immediately,
Okay,
and
so
my daughter immediately too. My oldest, no, she didn't put me on until 12, and that's when the state made her actually do it.
you're 32 years old, you're living your life, were you pretty much thriving at, would you consider yourself having been thriving at that time? Were you in a relationship at that time with someone else? Where were you in your life?
When
When
which one? When which one?
the first time? But
The first time, oh well, the first time with my youngest son's mother, when I put on immediately because I had a blood test because I thought she was cheating on me. So once I had a blood test, child support just came after me immediately. You
and
know,
your youngest?
that's my youngest son. Yeah, my daughter did the same thing. Me and her, we, we had known basically my daughter. It wasn't planned. We had sex that night. We said the next day, we realized, you know, we had did it that time, and we had already made arrangements just in case she had got pregnant that day. She wasn't ready for a kid. I wasn't ready for a kid. We agreed what we were gonna do. We're gonna go down here. This is, like I said, this is the night after sex, so this ain't like we waited 6 months in or nothing like that. Okay, I'm sitting there. 2 days go by. Her sister comes out and ends up pregnant. Comes out and tells the other family member she's pregnant. I'm like, okay. Then another sister, her other sister, tells her family members she's pregnant too the next day. So I already knew, even though we said we weren't having no child, I was screwed then because you got two sisters that says that they're pregnant. You know, she's because she's one of five sisters. You know, she's gonna want to keep her child too. Then now, because we're not gonna go down here and get this taken care of, and that's just how it was. Now,
So,
she
so you initially did not want the child initially.
no, I didn't. I had already had two, and I knew that I wasn't bringing in enough money financially.
Okay, so and is this the child that is this when you first got into the court system for child support?
Oh no, she after basically, as I told her, I said, you don't understand something.
First time, I want to know
Oh,
where you in your life the first time you got introduced to the child support system.
oh, it was with my younger son, my youngest my son, my 16-year old.
And where were
When he
you
was
in where were you in your life? Were you in a relationship? Were you thriving? You
oh,
already
yeah, I was in a relationship with his mother. You know, we had went on and off for a long time, and that's how I had my daughter. And then during one of our off spells, then we got back together, and then it was just on and off for years.
so what was the impact of you being introduced to the child support system at that time?
Oh, the impact was shit. You know, motherfucker just come in and take all your damn money. I mean, basically, you get introduced, they gonna tell you what to do. They gonna tell you how much money to take. They don't how it goes like this. They don't when you get introduced into the child support system, all they do is come down there, get an order for support. So basically, they ask you to show how much money you make. They show get how much money she makes. They don't take nothing else into consideration on certain aspects. I do admit that it's like if you own your own house, but if like you're renting or whatever like that, a lot of times they'll look at it like, well, technically, they don't take everything into consideration when they knock down your income.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll do that, put you on that, and then you'll be like, okay, well, fine. Do I get visitation or do I get the child every weekend and in the summer? Oh no, you have to go pay for a lawyer and fight for visitation. So it doesn't come hand in hand. You can go down there and you can be paying for years and actually still not see the child. And then you can get an order for support to see the child, and a woman can withhold the child from you still, and there won't be any consequences for her unless she's done it multiple times. So like the first 3, 4 times, she can tie you up in court 5 years if she wanted to, and you still won't see the child even though you're paying.
And what kind of state of mind did that put you in?
I mean, I had plenty of times. I remember she let me see him. Then I wouldn't see him for 6 months or 8 months at a time, depending on when, she was going through whatever phase she was going through at the time. And it just really hurts. You know that you know you have a son out there, and men are different. You want the best for your son. You realize the mistakes that you made in life, and you want to make sure that you instill certain values in your children, especially the young boys, because you don't want them to do any of the shit that you did. You already know that there's no excuses as a man. I sit here and laugh. I've gone into court and I'll just hear them talk about their excuse, and you'll watch the judge and she'll be watching her or he'll be watching her as she talks. When you go to talk, the judge just looks down like you ain't saying shit. You can tell it's going in one ear and out the other. It's like there's no excuses, there's no reasoning. Oh, well, fine. You ain't got enough money. Well, shit, get 2 jobs. Well, you don't have enough money for that shit. Get 3 jobs. Oh, well, still you don't have enough money. Get 4 jobs. I mean, basically, they'll put it, well, too bad. It's like you fucked her, so now we get to do fuck you for the rest of your life. You have no say so, unless you got plenty of money to fight us. If you don't have the money to fight, you're screwed. I would tell anybody off rip, you ever get a child, have a child, I wouldn't even say go down there and put yourself on child support right away. If she can keep you off as long as possible and keep you out the system, stay out of the system. But as soon as this paperwork gets started for child support, go down there and file for joint custody off a rip.
Mm. How has that impacted your life since then? Are you still paying child support now?
Oh yes, I'm still paying. I probably owe, like, I had looked at one time I had owed up to over 300,000. It's like 100 and something thousand now. But yeah,
Just right.
yes.
That is a lot.
Oh well, I'm on probation actually for child support too. So that's one of the things you got to be careful of, because once you get, what I tell everybody, if you ever fall back to where you get on behind or anything, all men pay like 15 bucks a month. They can't roll your case over to criminal, because after your case is rolled over to criminal, that's when they really screw you. So, because there's been times where they'll have the same case. You'll be in criminal court and juvenile court, and there's been times I've gone down to juvenile court, and I've gotten 30 days, or I've gotten 30 days in jail in criminal court. Get out of jail 2 days later, have a case in juvenile court, same case number, and they'll try to give me jail time too. And I'm like, dude, I got out 2 days ago. And they're like, what? I'm like, yes. Criminal court has sentenced me to 30 days because I didn't pay for those 2 months in. Well, why you didn't pay? Because I wasn't working. You know, make sure that I mean, worst case scenario, if you ever get it, you lose your job, make sure that you go down there, put like $20 a month on each case. If you put like money down every month, no matter how little it is, they cannot touch you. And once they roll you over into criminal, then they put you on probation. Which, once you're in criminal, that's actually, a lot of people don't know, child support is a felony in most states. So basically, they will hit you with a felony for every child you have. So like I picked up 3 felonies, 3.5 years ago. And what's so bad is it's so vague in the thing. A lot of people don't even know that actually child support's a felony now. So you go apply for jobs, it shows this person had 3 felony warrants. or 3 felony cases this year, and it may not always say child support. So the person thinking, God, dog, this dude's a felon. I'm not hiring him. I mean, like literally, when I got picked up the last time, they're like, "Oh, this dude's got 3 felonies." I'm like, "Dude, it's for child support." He's like, "He's a real bad guy." I'm like, "It's for child support. Yeah, that's bad. Child support ain't no felony." And then the cop called out. He's like, "Well, what is this felony for?" He's like, "Oh shit, I didn't even know that. It's been time that people booking you into jail didn't even realize that child support is a felony now."
So now this is like you're pretty much considered having a record.
Oh yeah, it stays on your record. They put you on no, you got to see a probation officer. You report once a month. Now, how it works in our state is this: I live in Ohio. You report once a month to your probation officer. All child support payments have to be made in cash. They make you go to basically what they do is this: they rape you and once you're in the child. Even if you're paying child support and you're paying child support, they give you classes you got to go to. So they might take 15 classes. You got to go to this fatherhood class. And I'm not going to lie, it's just a scam to get money because all we did was go in there and sit there and talk about whatever sports we were watching because everybody that was there was the ones who were paying. So these are the people who actually got jobs and paying, and some people were actually losing their jobs or their employers were getting mad because they have to take this time off to do that. So it's like, well, wait a minute. If I don't pay, I go to jail. If I miss the class, I go to jail. I mean, everything's a violation. On top of that, they give you a drug in urine test. They can give it to you monthly. So, like, you're not even allowed to drink alcohol. You drink alcohol, that's a strike on your probation. They'll put you in jail for that. So, I mean, it doesn't have to be. You don't have to do it. Once you're in the system, it's like they're just looking for something else to tie you up on. And I mean, you should report like you go down there and sit in line, and you report like beat somebody's ass.
So then my next question for you is, how does that affect your ability or your willingness to have another relationship with a woman? Would you consider marriage?
I would consider marriage, maybe because part of me, that's one of my problems. And I've had my female friends even tell me, I'm just too nice. You're too nice. And I try to always see the good in people. That's one of my problems. I'm pretty sure, like, if you see, even when I've had my YouTube beef with people, I always try to give people the benefit of the doubt. I try to see the good in them. Even though I've lived a rough life and I've lived a tough life, but I always try to see that there's some good in everyone. you know, and I try to see the good in people. So yeah, but I do tell you, you have to protect yourself. Protect yourself at all costs. A woman does anything to get you into trouble where the laws could be involved or whatever. She shows aspects of women who have these type of characteristics. You got to kick them to the curb right away. My thing is don't get attached to them. You kick them to the curb immediately when they do certain things. That way you got a less chance of falling in love with them or getting attached to somebody who is not good for you.
Mhm. So, do you have a different process of dating now versus when you were dating your children's mothers?
You said what now? What was the last part? I couldn't hear it. The last part. It went out.
Have a different process of dating now than what you did when you were involved with your children's mothers?
Somewhat. I mean, I would admit it is discouraging. I mean, half of the time when I see a woman that I wouldn't want to talk to, I don't even speak to her. It's I say it like this: I may see 10 women that I like, I may speak to one. So it's like you put into a state to where you realize you didn't had so much shit that you got to kind of protect yourself, and you can't be involved. Like I've had dated women, and I think that they have made small mistakes here and there, but then I see like certain aspects of, hey, I see that this type of personality is not going to clash well with what I have going on, or I can see problems developing in the future because one, you're too selfish. When we have a conversation, I tell you, well, look, sweetie, maybe you should do this, that, or the other. If they don't take your opinion, that's normally how I feel them out in the beginning. If they don't take your opinion well, what you need to do is uh just be like, oh, okay, and just kick them to the curb before you even get it so close to them. Like stop calling or don't act like you're too interested. Most of the time, they'll leave you alone before you even, I really pay attention. I try to read them first a lot better. You are, it's not that I won't love a woman because I'm not even gonna lie. Last year, I fell in love with a woman, and I never thought that I would do that again. Come to find out, she did some things that were against my policies. That I even tell my children, don't date women like this, that, or the other. She's been begging. We broke up 3 weeks ago. She's been begging to come back, and I just can't let her.
So
She said, I realize what I did and this, that, and the other, and I know all the shit you've been through. Hey, plain and simple. I give you complete trust in the beginning, 100%. I can't allow you to fuck me so many times and then just be like, come on back. No,
how
you
do
got
you see yourself coming out from the child support debt that you have, or overcoming? Do you see yourself overcoming it? And do you have a plan, or are you seeking some sort of legal assistance or some sort of financial advice on that situation? And also how a woman can be beneficial, or you beneficial to her in a relationship, in another relationship.
well, I mean, I'm one of those ones. I think that I'm always can be beneficial. The type of work I do. I'm really good with my hands. I have my own shit. I may not, like I said, I may not have everything that someone else my age may have, but I damn sure don't need. It's not like that. I'm going to be a burden on you. Like like if we were together, you would be losing something because of me.
Okay.
I can hold my own. I may not be able to hold my own and still wear Gucci clothing, but yeah, I can hold my own.
Okay. And so, what advice would you want someone to take away from? No, before I go there with that question, what is the most important thing you would want the listeners to know about you at the end of this dream?
Mm. What I say, I guess it's not me. I'll just say all men in general. Is
Okay.
that sometimes a lot of us have been through a lot of shit,
Hmm.
especially if we've dated, and I see that they don't take our feelings and our stresses for granted. They just feel that, you know, oh, whatever, you should have to just deal with it. And just to realize that sometimes men, after you've had a hard life and all like that, sometimes you just want peace. You don't need all the arguing and bickering and all like that. You just want peace.
Hmm. Just want peace. And what would that peace do for you? What does it mean?
I mean, when you have somebody that's going to give you peace and not, I mean, I will say like this: it helps. It's like you coming home and you got all the battered battle scars, and then you got peace at home, so it just allows them to heal. It's like, you come home with all the burdens, but to know that you don't have a problem at home, it gives you like something to look forward to. A lot of us times when you get like, especially in a situation like, I'm in, I mean, I'm not even going to lie. Sometimes I feel like I'm just working and I'm hustling hard every day just so I can live till tomorrow. And that's a bad rut to be in. And that's why I try to tell these young men, make sure that you don't have a child before you have everything established, because it's just hard going to work every day, doing exactly what you could do, and then know that, hey, I don't even make enough money where if I wanted to date a female, I could take her out to a nice restaurant, so she could actually even get to know me. So then what's that's going to do? That's going to put you in a lower dating category where 9 times out of 10 you're still going to be alone if your finances are damn near tapped out because you got enough money to go to work, come home, pay the bills, sit there and watch TV. That's what your life is going to be. So basically, it feels like, hey, I'm just working just so I can breathe tomorrow. And you want, or I call it organized slavery.
Wow.
You know.
The Wolf and Beta Club says, what you can do, Judge Dre, is ask your children to relinquish you from the amount of child support. They can do that.
Yeah, I asked my daughter's mother to do that a couple months ago. She wouldn't. I know my son's mother wouldn't do it. I mean, because she's too vindictive. Fact is like this. The bad thing is you got 3 by 3, so you got 3 different opinions. They're not gonna do that. People, unfortunately, a lot of people like that power. Only thing I can say is that my oldest son's mother, she's gone to bat for me a couple times in court and told him, well, look, the man doesn't have any money. And all like this. And they said, well, what type of father is he? Oh, he's a great father. The man doesn't have any money. He doesn't. He said when he was younger, every time my son came home, he'd have $100 or $200 in his pocket. I always knew. I used to sit there and joke with her, like if she called me and be like, "You want to see your son?" And I just asked her, "Do you need some money?" Because every time I sent him home, I'd always send him home with money in his pocket, even when he was an infant. And it was just how it was. So she said, "Oh, he's a great father. He does whatever he can." Hey, when Andre had the money, if Andre bought him new shirts, of course his son had new shirts on with him. Just what it is. He said he doesn't make the type of money he used to make anymore. So, what can I expect?
Here's another question. Why did you not yourself use protection when you were
Uh,
kids? Why
when
did
I
you
was younger,
use condoms?
when I was younger, you know how you do sometimes, but not all the time, or you run out, or like I said, it's all an excuse. Just young and dumb. That's really what it is. Man up and be what it is. With my second son, you know, same thing. She's at first, I can't really even blame her. I can't even blame her on any of that. Just young and dumb. It's just what it is. And
Hey,
then, people see that if you start to do anything to where you're going to start to get anything, or they think you're about to get in ahead of life or get anything going for you, then a lot of times people will be vindictive to you. And it's like, well, hey, I'm just going to do this just to make your life hard just because I have the power to. Because
hey,
I've had my son's mother do that to me. She's got mad at me for something she did, but then yelling and screaming at me. And once you're in the child support, especially if you're behind, they make a phone call down there, and all of a sudden they're like, it's like they open your case, or they go harder at you as soon as they make a phone call. So literally, like any woman, I ain't even gonna lie. I shouldn't be saying this because women out there probably do the shit. You can even lie and say you was a child's father and you knew the nigga was on child support. You just call down there. I mean, you lie and say you the child's mother and he's on child support for your child. You call down there and just talk to his people. Next minute, they're gonna be turning to screws to him harder just because you made a phone call.
if wow, um, had anyone ever talked to you about wearing a condom before you started
Before,
children?
probably heard a little bit here in school, here and there, but no, I wasn't. It wasn't as pushed as that. I mean, someone asked that what's my profession, a judge? No, I work in the home repair field. But before that, I was actually before when I was supposed to be making the good money, I was actually a computer in the computer networking field.
So,
Mhm.
what advice would you give young men right now about protection and about relationships?
Uh, Always protect yourself first. Do not trust a female in the lower age bracket for shit. Unfortunately, you women may not like that, but do not trust them when it comes to any of that. All of these men out there that are telling you their stories, it ain't like these women were acting like that shit before when they met them. They all started off nice and lovey dovey. Because think about it, how many of us would have children with women that we knew that they act like this? Sometimes it's like this. They have the power and the control. Now, just because not every woman does that
Uh-huh.
does not mean that they won't. And so that's what it is. You have to really be careful. I mean, because a lot of people are not used to having power without flexing it. And I think that a lot of time they'll use the power as a flex. But it's, oh, well, if they think the worst thing you can do, they think you're moving on from them, then it's like, well, hey, I'm going to make sure that you don't have no money to leave me or this, that, and the other. I'm going to make your life a living hell just because me and you didn't work out. Always protect yourself first. Don't trust when it comes to stuff like that. Don't trust them. When it comes to your protection, protect it. The first thing, protect yourself first. Make sure, you don't get anybody pregnant until you're ready.
And ready means what?
Established career, house. I would tell if I was telling any man that was smart, you have a kid before 26, 27, you're a damn fool.
Wolf, if you would unmute his mic.
Huh?
I was asking the Wolf if he would unmute his mic. Wolf.
Um,
Yeah.
So, and what you had to say about relationships and about having children? Do you share the same sentiment about waiting a certain age or waiting until you're ready financially?
Oh, most definitely. Me personally, I actually staved off having sex with any woman until I was 18, because I understood at a young age that what was going on around me. Once again, I was one to pay attention to my environment. So I watched people as they went through this system and what it did to them. I mean, unfortunately, I could not particularly avoid that situation personally myself, although I did mitigate the amount of backlash that I got from it, because not only was I not in the state which a lot of those things were going on, but I did marry women who, uh, at one point in time, they were invested heavily into my success. So for them to turn around and then to, go against that, it took them a hard pill to swallow in order for them to do that. I mean, they eventually did that to some degree, but even now, my kid's mother, she definitely helps me out with the children when it comes for my portion of the custody agreement. I have 50-50 custody with one of my kids, and just like the judge was saying, my oldest actually lives back in Detroit, and her mother will not let me see her or talk to her. It's been about maybe 6 years in that situation, and it's so hard to handle with me being in Colorado and taking care of two children here. Even though I pay child support, I don't pay child support for my two children here, but I do for my one back home. I mean, which is not a big deal, but at the same time, um, that situation came about because of her her jealousy and wanted to set me back. I tell every single last one of them, you can't stop me. Period. You're gonna have to put me in the dirt before you can stop me from accomplishing my goals. There's nobody in on this planet Earth, no system, no amount of men, nobody's gonna stop me until they take my last breath. And I meant that. I meant that from the very core of everything I believe in, and that's been the case. Every obstacle that I face, I won't. I've never given up. I've never given a woman enough power for her to be able to take anything from me. And it's not monetary power or legal power. It's the power of my spirit. I've never invested my spirit so much into a woman that she was able to take my power away from me. So, um, they try little stuff here and there. Even my ex right now, I'm going to court for that stuff currently, and it's It's just going through the system, going through the system. But I told him at the end of the day, my will be done because I stand on the side of righteousness and you won't stop me. Period. So yeah, definitely, I would definitely say have your life together and have your direction together and know what you're willing to sacrifice and have a plan for if you come up against these situations. Because that's the thing about life. Life is meant to procreate a stronger race past the point of its present.
Mm,
So it's always going to put you in a test mode. It's always going to put you into a mode of stress. So you have to be diligent and you can't be complacent about if something's going to happen. Something's going to happen because this is life. It's meant to test you. So make sure that you're prepared for any possible situation that you can think of before you even take on the thought of engaging in a situation in which you could be vulnerable in a way that could destroy you.
mm. You said something about, thank you for that. And I I admire the strength in your voice and in your spirit, in what you're saying. You said about you waited until you were 18. So
Yes.
could you have waited longer than that if necessary?
Um, Not necessarily. I mean, because once again, my well, actually, that's another story I'm gonna have to make a video about. But I lost my virginity to a girl that I didn't want to lose my virginity to. That is a complete another story. But um, that started my gears for my sexuality. I mean, because I continued the relationship with her because I was in a position where I was able to take care of a child. I had a job, I had a place to stay, and I was getting decent income. I was moving up. So if I were to have a child, then I was able to take care of that child and maintain a relationship with her if that was the case. So I was always a preventative guy when it came to the situations that I chose to take on for a long term. Uh, so I wouldn't say that it's necessarily about an age. It's about where you are in maturity level,
Mm,
because we all go through different things and they teach us different lessons. Some more than others, and some lessons people don't learn at all. So I would advise anyone who was facing any situation to ask themselves how much knowledge do they have about this situation that's in front of them to protect themselves. Ask other people. Talk to a lawyer. Educate yourself. Look stuff online. I mean, we have the fastest information sharing ability known to mankind in its existence. Use it. Use it to your advantage. Figure out what kind of situations. That's how I came up on the Black Manosphere. I mean, I wouldn't be here if I wasn't the one who were looking for answers for a situation before I got into it. Um, so I would charge anyone to make sure that any situation that they approach, that they are well, at least somewhat versed in what the downfalls are about engaging themselves in that situation. It doesn't matter the age. We all face new challenges all the time. So
how did you, what did you do to discipline yourself? I mean, because of course I don't know what it feels like, but from what I understood, what I've heard about men going through adolescence and wet dreams and things like that. How did you make it through that period?
what period was that exactly?
Your adolescence, your puberty, when you, I don't know, when you guys experienced your wet dreams and stuff, how were you able to exercise? What did
Oh,
you do to discipline yourself at a time when I'm sure others around you were being active and
I get what you're saying. Oh, so
so
the reality disciplined me. That's what disciplined me. Because once again, coming from the environment that I lived in, we didn't take threats lightly. If someone said they were going to do something to you, you automatically damn near fought them on the spot, or you tried to harm them to a point. We don't take things jokingly because the reality around us was so blunt and honest, and it was so forthcoming. You don't have the luxury to second guess. So I adopted that mindset when it came to my observations and watching my environment. I seen what happened to people when they got themselves in certain situations. So there were certain situations I stayed away from until I had enough data to make a good choice about how I should proceed when dealing with that same exact situation. So it wasn't so much um, it was discipline, but it wasn't so much fighting my urges. It was avoiding avoiding having to drop out of high school and work at McDonald's for the rest of my life. It was avoiding having to deal with the drama and explain to my parents what was going on. It was avoiding paying child support at a young age, and I couldn't afford that. I mean, it was mostly I seen someone hand get burnt on the stove. I'm not touching it without gloves. So.
Wow. This was not intentional, but it seems that I literally have gotten two guys on the opposite that are polar opposites on a spectrum, and yet I can see the benefit of having you both here at the same time. What I would like to ask, Judge Dre, you missed a lot of the interview with the wolf. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
You missed a lot of the interview with the wolf. But the wolf in Beta Close shared about being in the military. He's born and raised in Detroit, Michigan, and he grew up mostly around women. He had an active father in his life, but the women raised. He didn't see many relationships between a man and a woman and solid marriages. He joined the military after having a friend, like a brother, said he was going to join the military. He went into combat. After combat, he got married. He took a break and from the military to deal with PTSD, and so these kind of things. He has. We have three children, right? The Wolf, right? Wolf, you have three children.
He's muted.
Oh,
Oh,
sorry about that. I'm trying to make a pack of ramen noodles. And
Oh,
I'm
what
trying to
kind?
figure out why my microwave is not working. It
good
was
night,
just
JT.
working. I think it got unplugged, but anyway. So yeah, I have three children. Yeah.
So this pretty much is the background of Wolf. And what I would like to ask of you all, both of you have given what I would consider quite a few gems and good information to be shared to the audience. And I'm very thankful that both of you agreed to come on into Womb Conversations and share information, share stories, so that we could grow, so that we could hear, so that we could heal, so that we could cultivate and leave some impact, leave some food for others. I would like to ask you all to say some encouraging words to each other as men.
Well, I say it's. I
You
say
want me
that.
to right now?
Yes.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead, Judge. I'm good.
I
Go
was
ahead.
saying this. Hey, man, I give you mad props for being able to, navigate the trials of life and still be. I always thought that I'm a decent. I don't think that I have my head way up, but I see it to me when I compare myself to you. It seems like you have your head way up. I'm proud of myself for being where I am, but when I look at you, I see someone a lot prouder than myself who went through something similar that I went through. So I give you mad props on that, man.
Well, I appreciate that most definitely. Um, And you know what I I wouldn't say that I'm envious of other men per se, but there are attributes that I see in men that I often try to cultivate in myself. And one of those attributes that I see about you is your level of honesty, your level of straight to the point, direct honesty. You call it like it is, you say what the truth is, and you're unapologetic about it.
Yeah, well,
That's one
let's
thing I definitely need to work on in myself.
trust me though. You get a lot of backlash with it. Trust me, because sometimes the truth is not. The truth hurts, and that's what I've always learned. The truth hurts. People don't like to hear the truth.
Yeah, and I deal with that all the time. I mean, especially with my interactions with women. Um, I, I have this innate ability to destroy fantasies for some reason. Just by being truthful. Like my rationality is so potent. I can walk down the street and Disney movies will start deleting or something. I don't know. I like I live so much in the reality that everyone around me is faced with the facts of life. They are faced the front. They can't run away from their demons anymore. And that's what I realized about my past relationships with women. I used to think that I was so abrasive, and I used to think that I was so um, unapologetic, like I said about you earlier, but that wasn't the case. It was just that I'm so rooted in the reality that I don't allow anyone around me to try to distort that with a fantasy world. And
Okay.
and that made the women uh, force themselves to face the truths that they were running away from in that fantasy world. I have a I have a belief that I often say to people, um, and I say this all the time because it's so important, and I think it's something to consider. I mean, I'm a very much I like to create hypotheses and then try to prove them correct because of the things that I see. I mean, there are so many things that are unexplained in this world. I can go on and on, but one of the things is the the ability to create a fantasy world and the ability to maintain a reality. If you can't maintain a fantasy world without your reality crumbling around you. When you live in a fantasy world, your reality turns to crap. And I was speaking to a friend of mine earlier, and I told her, I said, the thing of that is, if your fantasy world dies, you don't die because you're tending to your reality. When you tend to your reality, your fantasy world dies. When you pay more attention to what the reality is telling you, you don't have room to fantasize about what the reality should be because you're faced with the truth all the time. Whereas if you tend to your fantasy world, your reality starts to die. But if your reality dies completely, you die completely
Yeah.
Mm.
because the reality is you. So I charge people all the time to be cognitive of making sure that they are facing the truths that they are faced with and not turning their head away from it because it can cause you your death. It can be a detriment to your life. You have to accept the reality for what it is, or you may lose completely.
Mm.
But,
Um,
but that's all I have to say.
Good point, though, man. Good point.
Thank you for
Thank
that,
you.
Dre, and thank you for encouraging each other and for lifting each other. I just felt the need to have you all to share some expressions of a sort, man to man, in a way that I, as a woman, cannot convey. I would like to say to both of you, though, as a woman and as a black woman to the black man, I think that both of you all are absolutely awesome, and I am so humbled and I'm so honored that you all thought enough of others as well as myself to come on this platform and to share such words, share such testimonies, share information, as well as your vulnerability. I'm very, very grateful. And I wish you nothing but the best. Um, Wolf, I know that you just started, content and you don't see yourself as a motivational speaker, but you are very inspiring. I love you say, I charge others to do this. I charge men. I charge women. I hear a command. I hear a thrive. I hear a force of determination and a force of power and purpose of my own purpose. And hear, I also hear waters uncharted for you as well, but a willingness to go wherever and do whatever is necessary to finish and accomplish the mission, whatever that is. And so, for your strength and for your admonition, I admonish you even the more for that. Judge Dre, for you, I want you to know that I stand with you in belief that no matter what it looks like, you can and you will overcome these financial, I don't want to call it this, just issues that's happening
Mhm.
in sports and everything, and that you both, and that you too will thrive. You will be successful in your business endeavors, and that the resources that you need to help you will come. If you would just stay, if you would just get stay humbled and receptive and open to that. May the doors come and open up for you. May you continue to be the judge. May you continue to be balanced, no matter what, no matter what. And may you continue to be yourself when it comes to your feelings and be an example to others that being a man, you avoid our feelings, but that you are able to have them, and it's how you deal with them that matters.
What you do?
You both in your own way are beacons of light and warriors.
Well, I appreciate it most definitely.
Mhm.
Awesome.
Thank you, Raymond.
So we're gonna go through the chat room really quickly and see. Oh, there's an echo. There is an echo, huh? I don't. Am I the one echoing?
No, I think that was Judge Mike.
Oh, okay. So let's go through the chat room before we get out of here. There have been very active in the chat. A lot of conversation going on. I saw that you were also being very engaging while I was interviewing Judge Dre. Thank you, Wolf,
No problem.
for the close. From what I gather, everything has been addressed with each other. The red pill is reality, the blue pill is fantasy. Okay. Moshe says, thank you, brothers, for your words of wisdom. Reigning Woman is a great host indeed. Thank you for that, Moshe. Thank you. I want to thank all of you for being here as well. I want to thank Amanda. I want to thank Pretty Apple. I want to thank Jack Spade, Moshe. Let's see who else. Silks, BB Scratching. I want to thank Raw Honest Tea. I am thanking you all in particularly because you all were very active in the conversation. You had many questions and you asked your questions. You had many comments. And so I want to thank you for your total engagement. And I want to thank my mods for keeping everything balanced and keeping everything respectful and calm, just the way that I like it, and reminding others that this is not a place to self promote. Just out of the clear blue, just random self promoting. People just popped in like, "Hey, listen to my record." No, I'm sorry, not. But I did. You all are able to drop links to your channels, and please drop the links to the channels of the Wolf and Beta Clones and Judge Dre. Wolf is speaking like a warrior. I agree. Righteousness will prevail against the wicked. There was a lot of conversation about the system, about the child support system being evil and wicked, and I agree with all of that. And wanting to hold you down, you said something in the chat about being a way to prevent the black man from building wealth. I concur 100%. So that's something else that will need to be seen on another platform, another stream. I would love to go more in depth about that. I have to disagree with them on that about having children young. There are advantages, disadvantages, getting married. Jack Spade, I have to disagree with him on that one about having children young. There are advantages and disadvantages getting married and or having a child or children young to include over 30. Jack, what I have to say to that is I agree to the degree of we all are here for a purpose. And our our life experiences, our environment, along with other things, are factors in all of who we are, right? Which is why we're all individuals, and which is why it's important that we learn how to get to know each other as far as friends, our acquaintances, and in relationships, whether they be romantic or friendships, because different things, different components make us who we are, along with the time of our creation in the universe, via our signs and our numerology and things like that. So, but no matter how we got here, no matter the time between our parents, no matter their age or whatever, however we got here, every last single one of us has purpose. And every last single one of us has a purpose that is important, it is vital to not just ourselves, but to other people and to the environment and society as a whole. But in as much as we have knowledge and information that we can apply to make things easier and better for the next generation, that is also, in my opinion, a part of our better purpose and serves to a higher and a better good. When we know better, we should do better. When we know better, we should do better. And when we know how to do better, we should do better. It's not knowledge that is powerful, it is applied knowledge that is power. But there are advantages as well as disadvantages for both. So you take your cards, whatever cards you're dealt with, you take your cards and you play your hand. But you play your hand that you're dealt with to the best of your ability. Learn the rules of the game. Don't let the game play you. You play the game. What else we got here? A man is to love 1,000. I would never. I'm not sure. I probably missed what you were saying about that. I apologize, Pretty Apple. But we're pretty much caught up. Okay, so thank everyone for being here. We're going to go out with some music. Any last words you all want to say to the audience before I turn on the music
Uh,
and get out of here?
my last words is I would say to everybody that as long as you're breathing, you always have an opportunity to make the right decision. No matter what you've done in your lifetime, no matter what your label may be in your community, no matter you know what kind of situation you're in, you always have the opportunity to redeem yourself and make yourself right um, in the way that you see fit, not other people, but in the way that you see fit. I mean, we all have our own relationship with God. You know, we don't have shared relationships with God. Only through communion do we do. But as far as the individual basis, no one knows your relationship. So I would make sure that you pay attention to what you have going in your life and the direction that you want to go in, and always strive for that. Um, just know that as long as there's tomorrow, there's always another day to move towards your goal in life.
Awesome. Thank you. Judge Dre?
Well, basically, only thing I can really say is, yeah, you know, don't be scared. Don't be scared to tell people what's on your mind. Always be, open minded and willing to try new things, and understand that you're probably gonna and get flack and expect flack if you go against the social norm.
Thank you. I agree. Cyber hugs to everyone in the chat room. Cyber hugs to everyone that will be catching the replay. This has been Reigning Woman with Womb Conversations. And tonight's panelists, guests were the wolf and Lady Close and the judge. Hope you enjoy the replay, apply the information, share with a friend, have healthy conversations. Remember, in the womb, we're here to nurture, cultivate, grow, heal, help self expression, and be a blessing. And with that being said, peace out to the chat and the wolf and judge. You guys hang out with me for the in the hangout after I end this. Okay. Good night,
No
everyone.
problem.
Good night.